the top subscribed podcasts in the world now.
What are they called?
The Minimalists.
Oh, yeah. That's what you told me about.
Those dudes from, they had a documentary on Netflix. But they're like 1 or 2 in listeners.
How many?
Millions.
Oh, I thought you said 1 or 2 listeners. It's
No,
like,
ranked 1 or 2
okay.
in listeners.
And then it's Joe Rogan, right? After that.
Yeah, well, so it's funny. They're all up for some kind of whatever the Grammys is for podcasts. The
they have
Minimalists, Joe
something like
Rogan. Do you know Rob Bell?
Yep. Wait, Rob Bell, is he the...
No, wait, I'm getting my bells mixed up. There's a Rob Bell and there's a...
Art Bell.
The guy who's does the... does meditation, and he wrote the book 10% Happier.
That ex-newscaster. That
he hosts. I think he's still. Yeah, he hosts Nightline. Oh, he had the meltdown on the air.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, that was because I could feel. Have you ever felt that?
One time yeah,
that's brutal. Like when you saw him on camera, you could see him taking a breath, like you could just see him start to change, and I'm like, oh, that feeling of like getting hot inside, and then you feel like you want to run away, but you can't. It's a bad feeling.
And then that's runaway trains. There's nothing you can do to stop it at that point.
There's got to be something you can do, like
in the moment.
Start breathing or something, because that's what I do now. I just kind of. Because one time I went to this restaurant called Khan's, and for some reason the smell, they have like these barbecue things inside.
Yeah, it's Mongolian.
Yeah, we've
grill
gone to that before.
over in Coon Rapids. Did you go to that one?
No, that one wasn't as good as the Roseville one that Chris brought me to, and I thought I was all cultured because I know of a cool like exotic place, and I'd bring everyone there. But all of a sudden I went in there and they were like cooking, and the smoke was like getting trapped, and it was this like it must have been some leftover scents from, I don't know, whatever, but I just felt like it was in danger. Like, the place is going up, but I knew it wasn't, so that kind of freaked me out. So all of a sudden, I felt like I had to run away, but I didn't. I just stood there, and I felt all those crazy emotions, But when I saw him do that on live TV, I was like, oh, that would suck. And the next thing I know, he's, like, changing his whole life, and he's like, I think he said he had to, like, undo a bunch of stuff he was into, and
he was doing blow and all kinds of stuff. It's funny because he was a guest on the Minimalist, because he was in the Minimalist documentary. They talked about that. So their documentary is just like about a couple dozen different people and what minimalism means to them, And so it's not so much he's a minimalist, but it's about living a life of meaning, and for him that means doing meditation.
Yeah.
And he tells people, it makes why do they do it? They ask him. He's like, it makes me 10% happier,
That's all you need sometimes too.
Yeah, so there's all these. But anyway, they had him on their podcast, their live podcasts. They go on tour and stuff, and they said, we don't used to do cocaine. Did you ever meditate on cocaine?
Oh, geez. Is it even possible?
He's like, no, by the time I was meditating, my cocaine days were over.
Oh. I know some people do like mushrooms or something and then meditate, or they smoke weed and they meditate, but I couldn't imagine cocaine.
I've never gotten the need for chemical assistance to tap into oneself. It's just not me.
You were born zen.
No, it's like, are you really tapping into yourself, or are you tapping into a caricature of yourself? It's like, if that's not really who you are 99% of the time, are you really tapping into yourself, or are you need that artificial help to let down your inhibitions, or to strip away the things, that keep you encumbered? I don't know.
But I think that's what makes us not ourselves.
Are you already recording? Because this is very podcastable stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
I am. Because I don't want it to be like, action, so John.
Yeah, but I wanted to at least talk a little bit about like what you're doing in your format. I want to know about this.
That's what we'll discuss. I swear, if this goes 4 hours, I don't care. I'll edit it if you want, but I really like just
clip
two guys.
Out what you want.
Well, think about it. Two guys just get together.
Product placement.
Yeah, turn it the other way till they start paying me. And I'm drinking ginger ale, of course. I would never drink booze.
But have you meditated on cocaine?
No, but I was thinking, like, what if that is what, when you go on stage, and, like, for me, if I just have a quick, like, little something, I go on stage and I'm not worried about things I normally would worry about. When I was younger, I'd worry a lot more. But now it's just, like, I can get there without it. But I had to like find out what really was me and what was just a bunch of crazy static that was going on in my head. And a lot of it is caused like when you're young and people, like parents yell at you or teachers or whatever, or friends, you get bullied and all of a sudden you have all these goofy ideas in your head. And I think when I started to meditate and be a little bit more conscious of it, I saw it for what it was, and it wasn't affecting me as much.
Well, you literally had a metamorphosis from your brooding, dark, teenage years
9 Inch
to
Nails, yeah.
somewhere in your, late 20s. Over that 10-year period, what would you say, what was the difference maker for you? Because it was pretty pronounced change.
Yeah. Well, big part of it was just being tired of feeling belittled all the time.
Well, then the other thing, if I can interrupt,
Yeah.
not only the change, but then the path of continued growth since then.
Yeah.
Like you switched over to that, and weren't so dark and self-conscious and shy and all, and then it's like once you experience that, you're like, well, I'm gonna live that way, move a direction from then on. But
Yeah,
anyway.
for sure. It almost feels like I wore like a tight suit my whole life, and then I found a way to get out of it, And then after I got out of it, I felt like now I could do all these other things I never was able to do because I felt so constricted. But even when I was really depressed and dark and all that, I still was like freakishly obsessed with things, like we both are. Like you could sit there and work on a piece for hours and just forget what day it is,
Mm-hmm.
So I always had that, but as soon as I got rid of the emotional baggage stuff that I had, suddenly I was a little bit, I don't know, it just opened up in a different way. It was
Nothing
still the
inherently
same.
wrong with that freakish obsession, though. But
Yeah.
that's how people make breakthroughs individually or for society or build the Hoover Dam or whatever. I
Yeah.
mean,
You need that,
You need
I think.
an element of that. You need to have something you can go nuts and geek out on. So
Oh, and some people who, it's weird because some people look at it as an unhealthy thing. They think like you're autistic or something. They're like, wow, you could sit there and work on one lead for 12 hours. And it's like, well, it's because if I was doing anything else, I would be thinking, I want to go back and do that in my bedroom,
I wonder about people who don't have the ability to have just one thing in their life that they could focus on like that. I'm like, everybody should have at least one thing like that.
Well, maybe they do, and
For
they
you,
haven't.
it's music, whatever. For somebody else, it could be building the perfect scrapbook.
Yep.
Whatever, But
Gardening.
everybody, if they don't have something like that, I'm wondering, what are you just kind of floating through life? Do you have no passion about anything? Or,
Well, the problem is like, how did you find what you really, that was actually one of the questions because I had a bunch of my subscribers ask questions, but it was like, what led you to do the thing you're obsessed with, and how do you know that's the right thing? What if it was actually something else you were like, I always thought it'd be funny if you were really good at something you hated doing. Like, what if you were the best hot air balloon maker or something? You know what I mean? Just something goofy like that you don't do. Like, what if you were the best mime ever and you just never
Harpsichordist.
pursued it? Yeah. Like, will you, if you have enough silence or like alone time, will it eventually come up, like bubble up in your mind? Like, I should be I should write poetry or something. Or is it because everything you did sort of like led you to there somehow and you grabbed onto the first thing that seemed really interesting?
I got a lot of opinions about this because one, I almost think like a passion is kind of like having a significant other. I don't believe there's only like one perfect person out there for each of us. I mean, really, there's how many, 8 billion people now, 7,
How
whatever.
unromantic of you.
No, but
Didn't you grow up watching movies like
all
me?
across the world, and you think the person from your hometown that you went to high school with happens
That's
to be the perfect one for you? I mean, I would say that most people have dozens of people they could throughout the world that they would be perfectly matched to and could spend their life with, maybe even more. Who knows?
Yeah.
But to the same extent, a personal passion, I feel the same way. I mean, there's certainly some people who are clearly cut out for something in particular. That's clear. But you can cultivate a passion about anything you want. I mean, nobody was born being, a collector of precious moments. Those people got real good about it and obsessed about it, and that became their thing. I mean, wouldn't be my thing. But it's not like they were born, that's what I'm meant to do. It's like, some people are athletically gifted and they're clearly meant to play a sport. But, you look at some of these athletes, well, maybe it just turned out to be football because of where they grew up. They might have been a pro basketball player if they had grown up somewhere else. Or
There's a whole thing about that in that Outliers book. Have you read that? Where they talk about like what makes the best athletes. And strangely, it was that all of them were born on a certain date, that made them the oldest in their grade. So they were the biggest people at that time.
Ah.
And so they were able to go to like the best teams and learn from the best coaches, and they ended up being the top dogs. So it's kind of like,
interesting.
yeah, so who knows what actually triggers that. But you're right.
I was one of those oldest in my grade, and I always thought it's why I did better academically and why I was a better musician and stuff like that.
What month is your birthday?
September.
Mine's
September
October,
3rd.
so yeah,
So
yep.
I mean, my senior year of high school, I turned 18 on the first day of school. So
Jeez.
me and one other kid. So I was like the oldest in my, the oldest one in my class who had passed every grade.
Okay. So did it give you, like, I guess having
And I played 3 sports for years, and I was good, but I wasn't exceptional, But I was good academically. I was good in sports, and I was good in music.
maybe it was just because you had an advantage, you cheater.
And socially, I was able to get along with jocks, freaks,
One of those chameleon
musicians,
people.
and brainiacs. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's something else we can get into. There's different kinds of intelligence, but I always felt like I had a bit of an advantage, like I was older than everybody else, and I kind of understood things a little better.
You were the wise man.
Yeah, but back to the point that much like there's not only one person out there for you. There's people could be very passionate about a lot of different things, maybe even varying degrees of success with it. I mean, but I mean, just look at yourself. I mean, you obsessed over guitar, but then you obsessed over drums, and you obsessed over, everything else, music in general, and then recording and producing it and all that stuff. It's like, they're all kind of in the same sphere of interest, but, playing drums is way totally different than playing guitar.
Oh, yeah, for
and
sure.
what's important is totally different, and how you learn is totally different. And
I started on drums, and I remember playing with Al, and he would play Metallica riffs, and I would play drums, but I didn't have any cymbals, so I had an old lamp, set it here. I forgot what it was. I found an old crappy cymbal that was
you
cracked
totally
and put it at the
Mike
top.
Nastic's your
Mike
drum
Nastic
set,
did.
didn't
Yep,
you?
yep. I totally whittled it out of balsa wood. And I was hitting the hi-hat, and it was just, then my grandma eventually bought me this aluminum drum set that I was real happy to have. And I remember one day my friend Al just sat on the kick drum, and it folded down completely flat.
It was like one of those Sears drum sets or
No,
something.
I don't know. It wasn't even. It was more cheap than a Sears. I don't
Really?
know what it was. Montgomery Ward's drum kit or something. No, just kidding. But it was one of those things where all of a sudden then I'm like, okay, maybe that's a sign to finally play guitar, because my drum set was smashed. I'd go to orchestra class and I start bringing guitar picks and playing my violin with it. And my teacher's just like, Mike, just go play guitar. So I kind of got pushed in that direction. But then I found drums again when I, met Chris and then Tony Wick. It was just like, I don't know. I got real inspired. I don't know what it was. I always wanted to impress Tony and Chris. It was weird.
Which is so funny because I mean, now they've obviously focused on other things, and long ago stopped caring about being great at their instrument. It's kind of funny now. You want to impress them; they would be more than happy to impress you now, I'm sure.
Well, the funny thing is, I was thinking about that. I'm like, you got to be careful in life who you try to impress. Luckily, I was trying to impress my friends who were actually decent people. But ever grow up and you have that crazy uncle or somebody's brother that's just wild, and you think they're cool, so you try to do things to impress them, and you become like a different character for a while that you would never do just for that. And I thought that would suck if I knew somebody who I respected that back then when I was young, and I had bad judgment, and all of a sudden I was trying to just be like them, and I ended up crashing my car or something, doing something I didn't even like.
That's what I work on. My son just turned 14, my oldest, and that's what I work on with him. I mean, when he was younger, zero care for what other people thought. He used a pacifier until he was, I don't know, 5, something like that.
Bringing it back in style.
And we're driving in the car, me and him and my wife, and we're telling him, well, your friend so and so doesn't use a binky. No, just me. So and so doesn't. No, just me. Didn't care that he was the only
cool.
one. And
just me.
But now it's like, and he's not, compared to most kids, he's not as heavily influenced. But there's stuff. To me, it's more about, I can tell when he's an extrovert already, but around a group of people, he's like himself plus 10 to 15%.
Okay.
So he's amped up, and he's trying too hard to impress, and it's very clear.
That's that age, though.
I mean,
right?
he's funny, but he tries to be 15% funnier. To the point where it's obvious and kind of I keep telling him, I said, work your whole life at trying to be authentic. be who you are. I said, who you are is a funny guy. That's fine. You don't have to amp that up. That'll just come out on its own, you know, and that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to work with him now on being authentic because that's something so few people even know to do nowadays.
I wonder though, like, you know how back when we were younger and kids were trying too hard to be different, so much so they ended up copying each other again, and all of a sudden it's like you just lapped yourself, you know. But what I wonder is, like, I don't know if I'd be able to find who I am unless I went through all those stages where I was pretending to be somebody else, and then eventually
so you could learn not to do it.
Yeah, eventually, you know, like you try to impress everyone. Like back in junior high, it's like you're just trying not to get beat up, you know. So remember, we had these terrible jocks. Some of them were cool, but a lot of them were just terrors, you know, for us long hair kids. And I just didn't want to get beat up, so I would like wear certain things I thought, you know, wouldn't make me stand out. Then when I got into Metallica and stuff, that all went out the window. But it's like I had to go through that fake phase, and now when I look back at pictures, I'm like, it's not even me. I was just trying to be a chameleon, be anything to anybody.
See, well, that's funny you said chameleon because that was more me. It wasn't to impress anybody. It was to blend. So, like I said, I mean,
you wanted to blend.
I played sports, so I got along with the jocks. I was good at school, so I got along with the brainy people. I was a rock musician, so I got along with the freaks, and you know, and I played in bands, so I got along with the band geeks, you know, and so it's like I would. You know, my the way I talked, acted, whatever would shift based on which one of those groups I was with.
Really?
To the point where I even as a young person, I'm like, you know, who am I even going to be if I'm like, I adjust to whatever social group I'm around, you know?
Who am I?
Yeah. And so it's like, I learned very early on that I got to do something different than that. I was at least aware that I was doing it, you know?
That's good.
I mean, it made for smooth sailing through high school and I mean, I graduated with like 600 people. I probably knew all but like 10 or 20 of them. You know, I couldn't name you 10 or 20 of them now, but.
Yeah, that's the thing I always try to tell my students. I'm like, don't obsess so much about, you know, all your friends right now because, you know, it's surprising. Even like my 5-year reunion, which sadly I went to. Did you ever go to a reunion?
I never went to a single one.
It was so depressing, man. I went back and it was just like people were still kind of who they were, but a little more depressed because they kind of got a taste of life, you know?
They needed that reunion to have their group back where they could have that artificial importance. And
some of them were like living it up again, you know? Like it was weird.
Back among the people where I was popular and cool.
Yes. I'm going to roll my pants up again like Zach Morris on Saved by the Bell, you know, back in those days. But the best part was I was like, I got to get out of here. Because at the time I was working with Chris at A440 and I just, like I said, when I'm obsessed with something, I don't want to be somewhere else. So my skin was I was just crawling out of my skin trying to like get out of this place, but I had to say hi to a few people. And as I was leaving, I remember there was like this other room and it was like a coat rack room or something like that. And these two people were in that room just kind of hiding out by themselves. And I remember they're like, we don't want to be in there with those people are being so fake right now. And it was this girl named Missy and this other girl. And it taught me a lot. I'm like, oh, okay. So they figured it out. You know what I mean? They were just like, they've had enough, but they didn't want to leave, but they kind of wanted to hang out. So it was kind of a cool in between, but I just had to leave.
For years, I've like just preached to young people. I'm like, I know you don't believe me and you don't understand, but the day you graduate high school, you'll realize how meaningless 95% of that crap was.
Including half the stuff you learn.
But especially all the social stuff. It's like the day you graduate, you know, the cocky jock who walks down the hall and thinks he's God, nobody's going to give a rip who he is when he's walking down the street or, you know,
in fact, you might
walks
see him
into the store or whatever. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to bow down to him. He's got to earn it after that, you know. But it's a microcosm of what I'm trying to tell my son now is it's teaching you how to deal with the real world because there's going to be assholes at your workplace. There's going to be entitled people who think they deserve more than you do at, you know, at college or at work or whatever. I said, you got to learn to deal with those people, you know.
I guess that's a good thing about school is it teaches you sort of how to, but I think you're too young to process a lot of it, so you're more just getting scared and kind of
you're ill-equipped to deal with it.
Yeah.
It teaches you, but the same way, like, you know, an eagle kicking its young out of the nest to make it fly or whatever. It's more like that, you know.
It's almost like a prison atmosphere. I was thinking about that, but the funny thing is what you said about people once you get out of high school, how different you are. some people find a way to hold on to what they had in high school in weird ways. Like, there was this one guy in particular who was just the worst to all the freaks. He would like spit on them and do all, back then it was called Glee King. Remember that? You gleek on somebody, spit on them. And he
they still use that term, by the way.
Glee King? Really?
Yeah, my son in middle school was talking about it a year
Remember
or
when
two
you
ago.
found out how you could gleek? It was like this big deal. It was weird. Anyways, I remember like going, I wonder whatever happened to this guy. And I typed him up on Facebook, and his profile picture was him sitting on top of a tank with this huge machine gun. I'm like, see, he just found a way
to harness that,
get that energy out. So I'm like, feel bad for whoever he's, fighting, because it was just like his terror like goes on in a different, just in a uniform now, which is really freaky.
It's interesting. Probably the best place for him.
Maybe, but I just don't want to think that kind of mindset. Well, maybe he changed, but is like in charge of that kind of weaponry, or maybe that's what we need. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. It's funny because on the way over here, I thought about, I wonder what Mike's going to talk about, and I thought of something that it's like it's kind of my elevator speech for kids or anybody who cares to listen, and it was. I remember when I was, I was always more mature than the average person my age. I got along well with older people and all that stuff. And, people always say I had an old soul or whatever. And I remember at about 28, I was thinking, I've been working in the same job for a number of years on my, third house that I bought, seemed to have my life under control. I was well on the way to that, early retirement thing. I want to return to you and talk about what you decide to be obsessed about.
Wait, you were how old when you actually retired that first time?
33.
That's so crazy.
So I'm thinking, I've arrived. I've grown up, man. I got a handle on everything, It's like I'm doing well, and blah 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 blah, whatever. I remember about 35, looking back and thinking, I was a total punk. I didn't know what the hell I was doing at 28. And about 42, looking back at 35, I'm like, God, I was clueless then too, And then recently, looking back at my 40s, and it's like, yeah, it's a forever work in progress. You never get there. Hopefully, you keep trying to work that direction. Some people don't.
So people try to relive those.
Right. Some try to regress. I knew a guy whose favorite saying was, "Can't help but getting older, but you can always get more immature."
Sounds like my dad's saying. He would say something like that.
That was my thing. It's like, you're never going to get there. You're always going to be a punk. And after a few years distance, looking back in the rearview mirror, you're going to realize it, and you're going to realize all your imperfections, and like I said, the ultimate point to the people I tell it to is, don't stop. Don't decide that you've got there and you can quit growing. Like certain. This is recorded. I don't want to throw names out there, but a certain person you and I have talked about quite a bit, regressing in life, But
yeah, it's one of those things though. Like, what if it doesn't sound appealing to someone to keep growing? I gotta adjust something. Aren't these cool mics?
Yeah, mics.
Chris borrowed that one for like 6 months, and I told him, I'm like, can I get my mic back? And this one thing I have to hook it in, and I thought, did he maybe break it? And he's afraid to, like, do you know what I mean? And I'm like, that's something I would have done back in the day, So I said,
no, it's just Chris, just like he loaned stuff out for years, Yep. It's like he knows where it is, but till he needs it,
What's scary is when he comes asking for it, and you're like, where is that pedal? Oh shoot, I loaned it to a student and they quit. But yeah, I don't know. I think the idea of growing though sounds like a lot of work to some people. And there's a time in my life where I remember going, like somebody I knew was into self-help and all that, and that's kind of how I got into it, by the way, was through like Anthony Robbins stuff.
I remember when you went through that phase.
I have those discs right there.
Yeah.
It's because one of my students was asking.
Well, and it worked for you. That was part of your transformation somewhat.
The funny thing is he was saying a lot of stuff that I never learned growing up. And one of them was just talking about your present situation is not, it's like you're not your past.
You're
and you keep
defined
thinking, and I kept thinking, well, if I could really think about what I want everything to be, could I even imagine what I want? And that was the hardest thing at the time. I knew a bunch of stuff I didn't want, and then I thought, well, maybe you could start there and just say, well, I don't want to always be behind on my bills all the time, or I don't always want to feel crappy when I wake up. And then from there, you change it to, I want to wake up and feel energized so I can do stuff, and I don't know, I want to be in shape. You start to think of things you want instead of things you don't want.
But see, that's the growth. That's what I'm saying. It's not like you have to make a concrete decision. It's just one thing, maybe, some guy starts eating one salad a week or whatever, where he would have went out and got, chicken McNuggets or something.
Yeah. Just
and
one
just
step.
any move in a direction of well, I guess it's like anything else. You go to work, you try to get good at your work. You're in a relationship, you try to get good at, getting girls or making girls fall in love with you or whatever, or being, or wooing them or sweeping them off your feet. You play guitar, you want to, be good at guitar. It's like, why not? Why wouldn't you want to be good at life?
Yeah.
It's just a natural thing. And I guess for people who think it's too much work, well, that's just it. You don't have to do it all. That's where people get bogged down. Just like New Year's, okay, I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to eat only, vegan. I'm going to, whatever. They bite off more than they can chew, and so it's overwhelming. But even if you choose, screw that, I don't want to improve. Well, you'll pay the consequences. Your life will suck to the point eventually you want to improve something,
It's like stale water. If you ever leave the kitchen sink sitting there for a couple days, things start getting slimy. And I use that analogy when I was telling my band. I always want to improve the band, because no matter how good you think you are, how many shows we play, how many people say they like us, there's still things you can fix. And that's where it starts to sound obsessive. But to me, it's all about flowing and keeping that water flowing.
No, I mean, how many fans have been frustrated over the years with their band, going a new direction because the band wants to keep doing something new and exciting to them.
Even to its own detriment with its fan base.
And so they usually move out of whatever most people would consider their prime sound, because they're wanting to do something else. And
like Neil Young going synthesizers? No, that was to get out of a contract, I think. But
no, but Van Halen going synthesizer, and guess what? They went through that phase. Those songs are still huge. They only did 2 songs in that album with synth.
Which album? You mean with 1984?
Jump.
Oh, okay. Because they went crazy synth after that with Sam Hagar.
Yeah, but I mean, like that album, it was just "I'll Wait" and "Jump" were the only 2 tunes with keys. And they were both huge hits, and still are,
I'll Wait was on 1984, huh?
Yeah. Those were the only, it was such a big deal. I remember, because, I'm in high school, and guys are like, oh, I can't believe they sold out, got keyboard and all that stuff, So they pissed off a lot of people.
Rock
but for
is
some
dead.
people, that is the Van Halen sound. That's when they arrived,
Yes. Yep.
Other purists, it's like, once they got keys, it sucked, and it's like.
Well, there was a tribute band called Atomic Punks. You ever heard them?
I haven't heard them, but I heard of them.
They were so good. But the guy just came out, and they dressed like him, but he was really open about it. He's like, we're just here to pay tribute to our favorite band. He didn't say we're trying to copy them or trying to, And he's like, we go up to 1984, and that's it. He's like, anything before 84 we do. And it's funny because they didn't have like a keyboard on stage or anything like that. So it's like some people think of that as Van Halen. And then you're right, like a lot of people like me first got way into Van Halen. Well, I was into it when my dad had the 8-track. Remember he had Eruption, and I was just freaking out. I was like, what is that? But when 84 came out, it was so over the top, like pop hit, that you couldn't help but not listen to it all the time. It was on every second on the radio.
That's funny, because years ago I saw a Rush tribute band, and they played all the way up to Moving Pictures, and they stopped there.
Which band?
I can't remember their name, but the lead singer guy looked like Geddy. He played bass, he played keys, and he sang just like him. The other 2 guys didn't look as much like, the other 2 guys, but they played like him.
Yeah.
And, all the way up. Well, and part of it, too, is, after Moving Pictures, way more complicated with the keyboards. He would have needed to have sequences going. He would have had to can stuff and all that. He didn't have to. Up until through Moving Pictures, Ged played always.
Ged. I love that.
Interwove his keys and pedals and bass to where he could play it live.
So
that
much
was
so
a big
he's using
deal to
his
him.
feet.
Yeah, trigger stuff. If he had to trigger with his feet or whatever.
Jeez.
And it was the album after that, Signals, where they first started, having a bunch of tracks in there, and they had to start canning stuff. But so I thought that was part of the reason too. But it was also that was their peak, and so they didn't play anything beyond that.
Really? That's interesting. We just played with a band called Spindrift, and did you know about that?
No.
Yeah, Rush Tribute. We should have had you come out. It was at a casino. It was pretty cool. But we're gonna play with them again, I'm sure, sometime. But it was so.
Which casino?
Which one was it? I suck at gigs.
Was it in the city?
Turtle
or was
Lake.
it out?
It was a little ways out.
Okay.
But it was hilarious because
Spindrift. So did they play the whole catalog, or they
they have everything running on, like, the guy's rig was crazy. Like, we both had Kempers, but he had his hooked up to the sampler, which went to this and that. And I'm like, he's like, please don't unplug my stuff, because the second you do, it takes 20 minutes to like reboot everything and get all the sequences back. And the drummer had this huge kit, and it would spin, so you could do all the MIDI stuff too, all the triggers. And it was funny because I was thinking, well, we better not ask them to move their kit, because they were headlining and we were opening. And so it was one of those things where, it took them 2 hours, I think, to get the drums set up for all that stuff.
It
was
a 3-piece?
Yeah, 3-piece, but they did all the, he actually had a separate synthesizer for certain parts. They really went deep with it.
Huh.
But we were talking to them. We were really surprised to hear kind of like their story and what they get paid and all this stuff. It's really good to learn from all these bands. But he's like, we're kind of in a corner though, because people love seeing us, big Rush fans, but we also can't play every week, every weekend, because it's just there's not enough venues that hold the kind of people we need that would come to shows all the time. So they have to really space their show out quite a bit.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. Plus, you never want to oversaturate your band.
Yeah.
So I don't know. How did we get to Rush?
I don't know, but back to the obsessing about something thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, my point was you pick something. Maybe you pick the right thing, maybe you don't. I mean,
That's true. You can always stop doing it if you don't.
That's what made me think about the retirement thing. I mean, my biggest problem when I was young is I picked too many things,
Like what?
Well, I was good at a fair amount of things, so I thought, well, that meant I should be doing it. And and then I went through a phase like we've joked about this before. Where okay, well, I got to play every instrument, and until I got to the point where I'm like, instead of being so at a bunch of instruments, I'd rather be good at one or two, and started
Master of
leaving that
some.
behind. But some of us never get over that.
No, I have a story for you in a second.
Or are good enough to continue to pull it off, because they have a lifestyle that allows them oodles of free time. But no, and then I kind of like stumbled into the early retirement thing totally by accident, because I was horrible with money at first, and I'm like, wow,
That's
I
weird.
could really do something. And the fact that it's weird. I remember somebody telling me about Christopher Columbus, how he could see America before, he was just sure it was there, and so that's why he had some may have said, dim-witted idea to just pursue it, at his own peril and whatever, but he was sure it was there. And so that was my early retirement thing, was kind of like that. Nobody, everybody's like, yeah, you talk a good game. Nobody ever does it, right? Mm-hmm. So
that was a
I don't know why I knew for certain things I'd read and studied, I just knew it was absolutely possible. And once I had a goal like that, I was able to stay very focused on it. And it didn't take a ton of my time, but it took a lot of patience, A lot of retiring early. I mean, it took like 10 years,
Well, you were eating like Taco Bell every day, right? Like really
well, no. I mean, it was, but like a lot of good things that happen to people, I had a watershed moment.
Mm-hmm.
I got out of the service. I worked, odd jobs for like a year and a half before I got in the post office. And I thought, well, I'm home free. I got a civil service job, good benefits, good pay, yada, yada. I can retire at, 56 or whatever, full pension. I'm like, all right, I'm home free. I'm in way better shape than most people. And the end of that year, I had made more than twice as much money as I'd ever made in my life in a single year. And I had $12,000 of debt.
Which is like nothing now.
Nothing now, but that was in 89.
So it was like $1 million.
It'd be like 50,000.
Probably felt like it, yeah.
And, and over $4,000 of it was credit cards. It's like, okay, I made twice as much as I ever did. How did I rack up $4,000 in credit card bills in a year?
Interest, yeah.
And I mean, this is how bad it was. I was going to an ATM and taking $20 out of an ATM, putting it on my card to like go to the bar with the boys after work. Like do it 3 times a week or whatever.
So it wasn't a debit situation; it was credit. So you were paying interest on it?
Yes. Well, and that was before, credit card companies got smart and realized we could charge triple interest on cash advances,
Yikes.
And it was stuff like that. And just, I make big boy money now, so I got to make big boy purchases,
The American dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Buy shit.
Compulsory consumption. Yes. And
By the way, you can swear.
I'm above that.
Yes, he's so zen.
I'm all zen now.
Yes.
Damn it.
The most zen people I know swear like crazy. It's weird.
Swear like sailors.
Yes.
They're in touch with their inner rage. But that was it. Then I'm like, there's something wrong here. I made more than twice as much as I've ever made before, and I'm swimming in debt, And so for the next year, I stopped going out. I went nowhere. Watched a lot of TV. And
What's the Seinfeld?
Seinfeld wasn't out yet.
Oh.
Still a year or two away.
You were watching Wings.
Cheers and MASH reruns after the news at night. That's what I was watching.
It's a good combo.
But yeah, I knuckled down and I made some painful decisions, sold some expensive stuff I had, and I paid it all off in a year and never looked back and said,
Sold
never
sold
again.
your boat?
I had an RV. I sold an RV. I'm like, I got to take a big chunk out of this in the front or I'll never get it done. And so that's what I did.
I'm surprised you did live in the RV instead. Well, being in Minnesota,
it was a small RV. Sure. Ever since then, I've wanted to live in an RV.
I was going to say, you might end up there, which is great.
But so then I became this, I'm like, oh, wow, if you save money and put away, it like actually grows and gets bigger. And I've told you this before, but it's an important lesson that I've told friends of mine, and they've learned it too, and have confirmed it. When you're in debt, it's like every good thing you do, something kicks you in the ass. It's like, oh, I saved $100 this month, and then your tranny goes out or whatever. It's the reverse when you're in the black.
Sure.
It happened to me again in December. I was at a charitable event. I made a sizable donation, and the next day I got a deposit in my bank for $7,000 that I'd been waiting on for a long, long time. Survivor benefits for my son.
Sure.
And I had just talked to them last week, and it sounded like it was eons away. It's like there was so many hoops to jump through, whatever. Literally the day after, I made a sizable charitable donation. So it's like, when you're in the black, it works in reverse. Even if you spend a little, it's like it comes back to you.
There's a weird law that I've discovered in life too, not the same way, but when you are late for something and you hit every red light, well, if you're early for something, you ever notice they're not there? It's really strange. I'm like, okay, there's something to that.
Then scramble your brain now. Are they not there? It's just you don't care because you got oodles of time, and so you don't notice the stress and think about it.
Well, we can go deep on that.
And when you're late, the red ones hurt all the more.
No, because like another thing too is if you ever want all green lights on your way somewhere, just have this urge to want to text something. Because first of all, never text and drive. But if you have this urge, I just got to type yes and return it. By the way, if you watch the new Black Mirror, you'll never text and drive again.
I was going to ask you if how many were there? Have you burned through them all already?
I burned through 2 because Sophia said she wanted to watch the third one with me. But for some reason, it came up as one of the episodes was the first one that I just played when I hit the button. And it was actually the last one. So it showed me the last one first. But they're not really in order.
Right. So there are how many?
3.
Only 3, huh?
Only 3 because they did this one, Choose Your Own Adventure version.
Yeah, that was last year, right?
Yeah, but they consider that like the work of 3 episodes. So they could put out...
I'm sure you geeked out, went through and did all versions that you could, right?
No, I just did one actually. I don't know what it was. Yeah, I liked it, but it was just like, it's not quite there. I don't know what it was. I don't want to say I didn't like it because I was really into it. I was just like pushing the buttons and it was really fun. But I don't know. I
figured you'd go through and do every permutation, but...
No, I think I was busy doing videos that week, so I just never did it. But there's a episode called Smithereens. By the end of it, you're like, I'm going to throw my phone away. Which I'm surprised you have a phone at all. You seem like you'd have a flip phone. But you ever
5.5 years old.
Oh.
Look at that screen.
Dang.
Not a scratch on it. No case either.
I have a little, you can't even see it, but there's a little bit of a crack, but I'm just like, please don't grow.
Finally, I had to kept dying on me in 2 hours. So I got on Amazon, found bought a $6 battery from China.
You could put
got on
in,
YouTube and found a 3-minute video on how to replace the battery on this phone.
You had to buy a microscopic screwdriver.
No, because my glasses already had a microscopic screwdriver. So yeah, the whole thing was like $6 and 5 minutes of my time, and that was a year and a half ago, and still cruising. So it's like, I mean,
that's awesome.
The only thing a newer phone does better is take better pictures, and I don't really care about that much. So,
well, it's funny because I was using this this phone as a second video camera because I thought I'd have one on the guest, one on both of us, and I thought, that'll just weird the guest out, But the video,
don't weird me out,
I know,
man.
I'm trying not to. But the thing is the video on this thing is as good as my $1,000 Canons that I use for my videos.
Right.
It's crazy. That thing is actually pretty decent, but. It's funny, spend $1,500 on a camera like that or just use your phone. It's just kind of hard. But yeah, if you ever need to text something, you'll get all green lights. You're like, please just give me.
That has happened to me.
It's like the law of opposites or something.
That has happened to me. I think there's something to that.
There is. Really the Tony Robbins thing actually is funny because I used to just strike out all the time with girls, as you know. And it was to the point.
Now you couldn't swing and
fighting
miss
them
if
off.
you tried.
No, I'm just kidding. But it gets to the point where I remember going.
Shredding guitar helps in that effort to some extent.
Yeah, a little bit. And but what's funny is just I was thinking in my head, I convinced myself, I don't want a girlfriend. I just want to play guitar. And it's kind of like, you ever watch The Office?
Yes.
Okay, I figured you love The Office. Dwight wanted to be manager all those years, and he didn't get it until he didn't want it anymore. And I'm just like, there's something to that.
It's like scare me now because I just recently decided that I got to enjoy my autonomy now that I got it back.
Uh-oh, they're going to come knocking.
And I'm like, I thought about it for one day. It just like hit me when I got through that, that one struggle I told you about it. I'm like, I thought through for 5 minutes, like, oh, it's so hard, a lot of work. I have almost no time now. How would I have time for a girlfriend, and all that? Maybe casual dating, just somebody go do something with once in a while.
Tinder.
Huh?
Are you gonna Tinder it?
No, you're right. I'm not. Look at me. I'm not Tinder material.
Oh, you never know.
Yeah, they got a 50 plus Tinder.
Something for everyone. Bass players. You're a musician.
Where you put up your favorite meme instead of your personal picture. But no, so I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I have no interest right now. So now you got me scared. They're gonna come out of the woodwork.
Just like you said, you made that donation, and it's one of those things where, yeah, I mean,
the universe balancing itself out. The Seinfeld even Steven.
There is a thing about. What is
Remember
it? Nature abhors a
As
vacuum.
much as we like to,
Even Steven,
nature abhors a vacuum.
So yeah, you create this vacuum. That's why, not to get too self-helpy, but when the one thing I'm realizing whenever I talk to a student that feels trapped or they feel like they can't get anything done, I'm like, well, this sounds so lame and so cheesy, but do you ever just sit and write down what you want to happen? Because it seems like,
does.
But the problem is they go, well, I don't know what I want, like I used to.
Because you don't sit and think about it.
Yeah, you're just trying to get through life every day.
Right.
And so if you write down, I keep telling my students, it's scary what you could do if you just, like, thought about this one day when I was like, if I wanted to right now, this is so dumb, I could meet Diana Pierce, Carol, the news anchor lady. And I was like, I forgot how old I was, like 18 or something. I'm like, I could drive to Care 11. This sounds like a stalker or something.
Right.
I could hang out there, ask to meet Diana Pierce.
Or you could just wait till State Fair.
Could have done that. Or now she's like in the music circles that I'm in.
Really?
She knows my friends, and I've texted her before. But not that I'm stalking Diana Pierce. But it was just a random person I chose. I'm like, I could meet Diana Pierce if I wanted to.
Oh, so it wasn't a kind of MILF thing or anything like that. It was just
no, I'm just kidding. And then there was Belinda Jensen. No. But it got to the point where I'm like, and you know what? If I wanted to tomorrow start working at a factory, I could. If I wanted to work at a gas station, which I have, I could. And I thought I could do a lot of these things that you don't even imagine you could do. Okay, let's go even a step further. If I wanted to play guitar for a living, I could, even though it sounded really far-fetched at the time. And then when you make that goal, there's this chasm between you and that goal, and all of a sudden, things come to you. It's really strange. That's how I do my videos. I'm like, I can't think what's going to get the most views. I just think, how could I do something that's exciting to me? And then I'll just sit there, sometimes meditate, sometimes just about to go to bed. All of a sudden an idea pops in my head. Hey, I've been working on this freaking Magic Man lead for forever now. Why is it so damn hard? So I Googled it, found a lesson with Roger Fisher, the actual guitar player, and found out he tunes his first and second strings up a step and a half. And
Really?
that's why all the licks are so bizarre when you're trying to play them in standard. That's why I'm flying around live. But he tunes those up, and all the licks make sense all of a sudden. And I tried to do it, but I kept breaking my E string, so I stopped doing it. But that was my answer. All of a sudden, it came because I left the gap between the goal.
Well, that's happened to me. Like, I could retire in my 30s. Nobody else thought it was possible.
That sounds crazy to people.
And even though I work again now and working towards my second retirement, I had 7 years.
You got to
retired
read a book,
in my
man.
30s that nobody could take away from me.
I
Next
remember
time I
those
retire,
days.
I could die the day after, but I still got 7 years of retirement. That's more than a lot of people get, and I got it while I was young and healthy.
Was it all because of that book that you gave to me?
That was what gave me the path.
That was your
and
Anthony
some
Robbins?
of the it gave me the recipe and some of my motivation, but it taught me to rethink about a couple things, like time as being the ultimate economy, not money. We trade our time for money, and so we need to think about how much money we get for that time, and that's what helped me stop the consumerism. It's like, okay,
Gazingus pins. Or how do you say it? Zingus pins?
Yes, I forgot about that term. But no, it's like, one of the big things I bought when I, got my big boy job in my first house is like, I'm a musician. I'm going to get a big stereo, big home stereo, rack
Kenwood.
full of stuff in it. It was like, I don't know, $1,500 or something like that,
Back when people bought home stereos,
Right. Before they just put them in their ears
played from their phone.
Right. Yeah, listen to a single phone speaker, with a group of people.
Is it mono? Is it stereo? What is it?
Yeah, it's like the AM radio days in the early 70s.
Pretty soon we'll be cranking.
But, and so I shell out, $1,500, probably put it on a credit card.
Did you buy it from a guy in the back of a van by any chance?
Down by the river. And now I'm like, okay, 1,500, well, first I figured out what my real salary was, which was, at the time, I don't know, I was making $20 an hour, let's say, or whatever. But I'm like, okay, figure out, how much I spend on gas, how much I spend on work clothes, how much I spend on work lunches, how much time I spend to like decompress and let that job fall off me when I get home. Factor it all out and figure out my real hourly wage is like $5 an hour.
People don't factor in the downtime.
Right. Yeah, or the suits or whatever that, and getting their hair done, all that stuff they do specifically for work.
So your job ends up being 10 hours instead of 8.
Yeah, and so you add in those extra hours, you deduct those extra expenses, and it turned out, $5 an hour was my real salary, not 20. And so it's like, okay, $5 an hour, 1,500 stereo. Do I want to put, that many hours, 300 hours of my life that I'll never get back?
But you get to hear Rush and Hi-Fi.
In stereo. That stereo was the first time I heard Metropolis by Dream Theater, by the way.
So it was almost worth it.
And also, I played it for Tony, and he crapped his pants right there in my living room.
That was your
But
butterfly.
no, and I realized I don't, even when I'm home, I don't like crank the stereo while I'm doing stuff. And it's just, but it was just seemed like it was a compulsory thing. I got money now, why not?
Yeah.
And then Your Money, Your Life taught me that that's 300 hours of my life. That's, I can't replace those. Hours are finite. However many I have, there's only so many. I can't make more.
You start making different decisions when you really put the...
So that changed my financial decisions, and it also, changed that, through that I kind of learned what building true wealth is, which is, it's not showy things. It's not having a nice car, a nice house, whatever. Even wealthy people in America are like 2 paychecks from the street. They make good money and they buy good things, but they have nothing in the bank, And that's when I realized, if I build wealth, I can live off of it and retire and do things that are important to me, like get a worthless music degree and, fine arts degree.
Sure, we'll get into that for sure. I was thinking about
So I could go to work in the financial industry.
It's a big loop.
I'm in the financial industry because of what I learned
Right.
about finance when I was retiring early. So,
Such a crazy story.
but so I became that kind of obsessed with that, even though I'd been obsessed with other stuff. So it's like
Yeah.
You can fall into being obsessed about something. You can pick something and decide I'm going to work at that, and maybe you'll be good at it, maybe you won't. But it's not. You're not pegged into I got to be a guitar player because that's what I'm good at or whatever.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is you say that thing about getting the things that eventually you go, why do I have this? When my YouTube channel started taking off, like I had some extra money. I was just like, I'll buy this, I'll buy that. And a few things I use all the time. Like to this day, I bought a few things like cameras and everything that I use to do what I love. But then I remember I went one too far. I got a Apple Watch.
Oh.
Which, by the way, is really cool because when I run, I could just like link it to my earbuds and I could just run without a phone, But
Or
after
you could just give up running.
I could do that. I love how.
Why the hell would you want to do that?
What are you running from? I love that kind of mentality because I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? Instead of giving up like booze, I'll just drink more water. It's just like this way of justifying things that you do that are bad for you. But
I will dilute it.
yeah, I'll just drink more water later on that night. But I was thinking about it like every time I turned my wrist, it would light up. And I know you could shut that off, but I was just, it was like kind of a weird, like, it was like a collar I was wearing. You know what I mean? It was just like holding me back. It was tethering me in a weird way. And so I just gave it away because I'm like, I don't want this thing. Just get out of here. And that's when I knew I reached that peak of where what I really need to bring me joy is stops there. It doesn't have to be, the best amp. It doesn't have to be all the best stuff, which sounds funny because I play pretty nice guitars, but I actually use those things,
Music's your thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have the world's nicest dishes and
How do you know?
cutlery at home, I would assume, right?
Speak for yourself. I got those. What were those things all moms used to have? Those blue and white plates. I think they're like from Norway or something. Like I swear,
meant to lean against the wall above your cabinets. Yes.
And the second you hit the wall, like a plate would come crashing down, and your mom would hate you forever.
No, I mean you spend money on stuff that's in your wheelhouse,
right.
Not too much in, I call it the Martha Stewartization of America. I've talked to you about this before. It's that everything has to be the best. It doesn't. No, that's where we really kill ourselves. Like me, I got to have the $1,500 stereo. No, I don't. A boombox would have served just fine back then.
Plus, you could have held it like this and walked down the street.
Right, I could have walked down the street and, and bought 8D batteries and...
That's always an awakening when you're at Cub Foods or something buying all the batteries you need. That'll be $76. This is going to last 15 minutes.
But yeah, so you use the stuff you buy in here, and you use it a lot. And if you don't, you trade it in and get something else you will use or sell it or whatever.
Give it away now. I don't even have, I tried to sell that camera. And I'm like, this girl was going to do this documentary in Kenya or something. I'm like, I was going to give her the best deal ever, but I'm just like, should I just give it her the camera? Because she's going to do way cooler things than I am. And this is before I thought about filming the podcast.
That's a great way to think about it, though.
If it's going to be used for something really cool. Mm-hmm. So I'd have no problem giving things away. But the thing is...
Not for some, suburban, porn hobbyist or whatever.
Well, even then. But it gets to the point where you're just like, okay, what does it really matter if at the end of the day you're sitting there surrounded by a bunch of like shiny objects? It just seems, I don't know. And I'm glad at my level, because I'm not at your level or the levels that are way up there, that I've been able to kind of feel that already and go, when I go home at the end of the night, what do I feel the best doing? Like yesterday, I went to jiu-jitsu, got my butt kicked by a black belt, and came home happy as hell. I didn't have to have the best of everything. I just went there and got beat up. Felt like I tried hard, and then I felt good the rest of the day. Like nothing.
Moral victory.
Yeah. Like I lasted 10 seconds. He tried to choke me. So those little things, I don't know why, but I can go to bed at night feeling good. Whereas if I buy a new iWatch or something, Apple Watch or something, I don't know. I just feel like, I forgot to charge it. Crap. I got to get up, and it just seems like a burden.
My
first world problem.
My son uses iPads to communicate, and I mean, one of his is it's an iPad 2. Ooh. I mean, that's like
electric boogaloo.
That's like you got to feed the hamster that runs on the wheel inside of it to keep it going. And I mean, they don't even update it anymore, right? So I'm like, okay, this thing is like,
That's like my drummer has an iPhone 4. I don't know how it even runs still. Yeah.
And so, I mean, iPad 2 is like circa 2010. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah.
So finally, he has two. One's that's his backup now, and he's got a mini, like 3 or 4 or whatever. So got him the newest iPad, and it's been sitting in a box for a month because it's a burden to me to get that thing out, sign in, map it to his other one, go in there, do all this, settings, whatever. I mean, it's easy. You could say copy this one, but it's still you dinking around with it for a couple of hours or whatever to get it just the way
you
you
can
want.
clone iPads like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, copy his other one, but then it's like, okay, what the hell is a security setting? What and just you just got to mess with it for a couple of hours, right? And I just for a month it's been sitting in the box because I just have never been like there's nothing pushing me to get it done,
Sure.
And so it's never a high enough priority. And so, yeah, even though it's a nice, shiny, brand new iPad, I want nothing to do with
Well,
it.
you can leave it here. No, I have the same thing. I bought one just to do drawing on because one time I have this reoccurring stupid back cyst bump thing that comes back every once in a while. And it only happens when it gets like
And you want to make videos of it being popped for YouTube? Right?
Yes. No, I wanted to draw because I get in these things where I just want to be artistic. And I thought, well, if I have this stupid hunchback thing going on and I hurt my knee at the time, I might as well draw. And I just watched Gilmore Girls for 3 months and started drawing. And it got to the point where I was like, all you got to do to get good at things is do it every day. And I got obsessive about it. But now that poor iPad just sits there. So I was going to resurrect it for an in-ear monitor system that Chris wants us to do for the Heart Band. But that is another example of that sounds really like high tech and like super luxurious to have in-ear monitors, and it was really good the first gig, but by the second gig I'm like, all I need to hear on stage is my guitar and the singer and I'm good. So I'm
Screw
trying,
the rest of them.
I really just need
Who needs to hear the drummer and keep keeping
he's over
time?
there banging away anyway. You can always hear him, but I'm trying to get the keyboardist to use them just because she has trouble
You
hearing.
just don't want to listen to the bass.
Who wants to hear the bass? I want to feel the bass now. But our bass player is good at his setup really always vibrates the stage, so it's kind of nice. But you're right. All of a sudden, you went one step too far, and maybe someday if we all do it, it'll work out. But yeah,
I have in-ears, so I know we use them at church.
I just hate.
But you can do your own mix. So
on my phone, I was doing it. I was like, oh, I need to hear the sampler. Okay, perfect. It was great. But the worst, I swear, if I ever go to hell, if there is a hell, it's having to wear headphones on a rolling chair and then trying to stand up as it grabs the cable and pulls in. You ever have that feeling? I swear that would be my hell, just constantly trying to get off of a chair with headphones that are pulling you back. I hate that feeling of being tethered to something. It's probably like goes into the rest of my life. But it's that feeling. And when I was wearing the earbuds, I kept like looking up and I would feel tug, even though they went around this part.
it takes some getting used to.
I hated it. And then, I loved being able to hear everybody. That was great. But I ended up taping the cable to my chest,
Oh, you didn't put it down the back of your shirt?
No, because even when I did that, it would grab on like to something. I think it's because I was kind of sweaty and gross and stuff. But I would like look down. All of a sudden, I couldn't even look down anymore. I was like, gunk.
That's where almost always wearing two shirts comes in handy. You put it between them.
Yes, but I was going to say if I had chest hair like you, there's no way I could have done. I've got that Asian chest. Got no hair. So I was able to put like duct tape on myself. And then
Oh, man.
it kind of worked.
Yeah, I could maybe weave it in there to. Then I stand up and it would pull my chest hair.
You have
The
a
thing that
bald
bugs
spot.
me about them is like if you bend over or something, like your ear canal shifts a little.
Yeah, it's true.
And so like all of a sudden I'm hearing nothing but bass, and then I stand up and I'm hearing only high frequency sounds and
So the whole show, you're like head banging. Trying to get the
they
right
take
sound.
some getting used to. That's for sure.
I don't know. I was going to ask you a few questions if you don't mind. You want
Sure.
another?
This is the interview portion.
Not really. It's for both of us. 'Cause when I said, hey, I'm going to have a musical guest, I didn't want to say who it was. So I have you lined up, Corey Swap, bass player, lined up.
Starting with the
Two
bass players.
players.
1-2 bass
Weird.
player punch.
I didn't
Nice.
think of that. Uh-oh. I better rethink that. No.
Of course, he can talk restaurant biz the whole time.
He could talk that. He could talk anything. Trust me, in a good way. Like he came here before his reunion with his other band, Hook Echo, and we he couldn't leave because we just kept talking about old band stuff. And he's the old bass player for my old band, first metal band as a kid, and so that'll be interesting. I think but yeah. Now
So I actually got some music questions. All right, I'm gonna
let's
beer
refill.
myself and
And do you have to pee?
probably wouldn't be a bad idea, that list.
Yeah,
right?
so I have 40 Heart songs in a row programmed to that thing. And so basically, every time I get a set list, I put the order on the machine itself. And then I just say, okay, next song, and I hit the
Up
arrow.
button.
Yeah, one button, and it's there. But I might go back to just a Marshall with pedals. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's a little too convenient. Like one song actually transposes my guitar up a whole step, so I don't have to use a capo. Yeah, it's crazy.
So, what's the limit to how many, presets you can have in there? No limit?
No limit, because it's just restructuring what's already in it. So it's not like adding new sounds or anything like that. So I think it goes up to 999, which I would probably need if I was in a Dream Theater band or something. No, I'm just kidding. Heart's actually pretty crazy because you have the 70s and the 80s. They're totally different eras. So it's like 70s Heart, you're just trying to sound like old school. Les Paul, Marshall type sounds, and then you get to the 80s and you need like chorusy.
That's so fun. I'm realizing like every band went through that phase. Heart,
Kiss,
yeah,
Rush, kind of.
Rush did. I mean, they'd had Terry Brown who'd produced all their great albums, and they just decided we need to try somebody else, and then bring in this guy who'd never even heard of him, who was a pop producer, and all of a sudden they're super synth heavy, And
That's
but even
hit.
I realized too when watching Bohemian Rhapsody, it's like Queen. Yeah, I mean, Queen did a lot of different things, but they went through their synthy phase too. They went through a disco phase. But that synth phase, man, every band,
yeah. And also, if you kind of look back, we lived through it, so it's hard to see it as much. But the grunge phase, a lot of bands changed to all of a sudden fit that sound. And I was listening to
the vocalists, especially, man.
Oh, for sure, Eddie Vedder. Like if you listen to
the Jarl,
is that what they call it? Where you don't even need words.
Think of Creed. Think of
Creed for sure.
I can't remember most of them now, but they all did that like tight jaw singing.
It was two voices. I think it was like Eddie Vedder and Kurt Cobain. So if you listen to bands like Puddle of Mud, you swear it's a Nirvana song at first. You're just like, whoa. But that's how it goes. And I was really surprised when I heard all these bands go through their grunge phase, because all these bands that used to be kind of fun, like Kiss, all of a sudden they're playing songs that just were like dark, and it's just like, wow, we all went through this dark phase, and this is even like pre 9/11. So it was like, what were we all sad about?
It's funny. I mean, maybe the first 5 years Kiss had their own sound. After that, they were just. Gene Simmons has admitted.
Blasphemy! I will not hear this.
He was all about whatever would sell, and he's been that way. Everything. I mean, look at all the merch they had. They were
merch kings,
decades ahead of their time in merch. I remember Kiss cards being sold, collector cards like baseball cards being sold at my convenience store when I was in like 4th grade.
The comic books with actual Kiss blood used in the ink. That's funny. But
is that? Are you for real?
Yeah.
I'm
serious.
sure that went over big.
I don't know if I'd want to touch it. But I don't know.
Gene Simmons blood. You might catch some kind of
never know.
Venereal disease. But
you could probably roll it up and smoke it. No, I don't think he was heavy into drugs. But what's funny is I loved Kiss through all the eras, because I grew up they were already into like Creatures of the Night. So I first bought Kiss Alive, and then I went to the music store and I would flip through all the albums, and I had that moment where I just picked the coolest looking album. And then I would listen to...
They all look the same, though. They're all black with a bunch of color on them.
What? That's not true. You have Unmasked, that's like a comic book type
I'm
thing.
thinking of like the 70s, but and like Kiss Alive and Kiss Alive 2 and all that. They all look the same.
Destroyer.
Black with a bunch of color.
Well, I don't know. Platinum, you got the Platinum album, which my cousin had, the double Platinum, and it's silver. It's really cool looking.
Yeah, I remember that.
You just haven't seen enough Kiss. I got to get you into it. Even their like real 80s, I don't know if you got into that stuff, but do you remember the whole, this is a little after that, but what was it? Lick It Up and all that stuff. And even before that,
I think that's when I saw them. Eric Carr was their
Animalized.
Was their drummer.
Yeah.
And I saw, when was that? I saw him because, I remember this. It was when Guns N' Roses came out and it was blowing up. And this is before everybody knew Axl would flame out on every tour. But they were supposed to warm up for Kiss when Kiss came here.
GNR?
Yeah.
Holy.
And so a ton of people bought tickets because of Guns N' Roses.
This is right after Appetite came out?
Huh?
Right after Appetite came out? Okay.
And they canceled for whatever reason, and it ended up being Megadeth. But
Megadeth and Kiss? What tour was that?
Oh, God. I don't know. What year did Appetite for Destruction come out?
87, I think. 86, maybe? 87, I think. That's why I have this thing called Google. I don't have my producer sitting over there that I can talk to.
But it was funny. All the chicks that wanted to come there for Guns N' Roses were really disappointed that it was Megadeth.
Yeah, Dave Mustaine's never been like a sex symbol, but did you know about the time I got to roadie for like Megadeth and Korn with Corey and all that?
No.
And I went. It was funny because basically they got free labor all day because we're helping them move PA speakers, and it was a dream though. I wasn't complaining. We were supposed to. My old metal band was supposed to open the show, I think, or one of the shows.
Sanctus?
Yeah, but it was this other band got chosen, so the guy felt bad that we didn't get in, so he let us roadie. It was kind of this funny backhanded. I don't know.
Yeah.
Backhanded pat on the back. I'll just make that up.
And money saver for him.
For sure. Like, they would have had to pay people, like union people or something. So
Right,
we're up
you had to
there,
work
like,
your
I'm on
ass
a
off.
crane, big, lifted up with these, like, just make sure those PA speakers don't fall. I don't care if you fall, but so I'm holding on to these huge speakers and setting them up. And all of a sudden, I had to pee, so I went backstage. It felt so cool to have the pass, you know. And I'm peeing, and all of a sudden I look over, and there's, like, a divider, but all I see is, like, a mound of curly hair. I'm like, is that Al, my friend? Like, I looked over, which is not a smart thing to do when you're at a urinal.
Right.
Marty Friedman's peeing next to me. Super short guy, looked like Cousin Ed because all his hair was just pouring over, you know. Like, I'm peeing next to Marty Friedman. And then he left, and then I didn't follow him, but kind of. I just saw where he went, and it was this backstage room. And Dave was, like, talking to the band about the next video they were going to do, and he sounded kind of like a boss, and I was like, whoa, that's got to be tough to be his underling, you know. Okay, I was looking. I think it's 87. What would be your guess
For the year?
for Appetite? Yep.
Let me say 88.
It was 87, July 21st. Those were innocent days, man. Just 2 years after Back to the Future came out. Weren't those fun days?
No, the 80s were, there's some stuff about the 80s that make it such a forgettable decade. But, you're talking about the phases and everything. And, and like with the Heart Band, there's a raw power to the 70s stuff. For
sure.
But more and more, I sound like an old fart now, but I'm going back and like, that was really the peak of rock music, in my opinion.
Late 70s?
Or 70s in general. I mean, to some extent, labels were still allowing bands to experiment. They wanted to experiment, do cutting edge stuff. It was...
You didn't have to be the prettiest musician because MTV wasn't around yet.
There was no MIDI. Artistry was at its peak, I feel like, during that time. Just raw artistry from the bands themselves. Or very fact, the era of the band, we're not in an era of the band anymore, right? Sure. We're in an era of an artist.
There's a question about that too, yeah.
Okay.
Or the behind-the-scenes writer.
Right. Yeah, I was looking at a list of, as you say today, like the 100 best rock songs of all time, and it was based on number of weeks on the Hot 100 combined with the number of remakes that other artists have done of the song. And so you would have loved it because like a dozen of the top 100 were Beatles songs. Oh, really? Including probably 3 of the top 10 or something. And I can't remember which one of them they had for number one, but I was surprised out of all the Beatles songs.
Really?
That was number one. But anyway, there was some song in the like top 20 that some modern pop artist had done, and it was written by Pharrell Williams like 8 years ago before he was known or anything like that. It was pretty interesting. I can't remember who it was, but...
It's funny being this age because he seems new to me, but he's already old.
Yeah, but 8 years ago, nobody knew who the hell he was, right? Until Happy's what now? Probably 4 years, maybe?
You're probably right.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say, yeah, that song's like 12 years old now. I'm like, what? I thought I just learned about it, But you do. You get to a certain age.
The aughts are old. Yeah, I knew I was old when one day I got in my wife's car and she had Cool 108 on, and I turned it on and they're playing Van Halen. And I'm
yes, exactly.
Van Halen is oldies now?
Well, now what we thought was oldies, like Buddy Holly and stuff, it's not even on the radio. You have to go to like the Sirius FM or something.
Right, yeah. To me, oldies is 50s and 60s, not 80s and 90s.
Well, pretty soon oldies will be,
the aughts. They're already the...
What's the aughts?
The is whatever, the first decade of the 2000s.
Oh, I never heard that saying before. I never would know what to say, the 2000s. But yeah, I like going back and going, well, what was big when I was the most depressed, And it was like, man, I remember this time where it was like Madonna's Ray of Light. Do you remember that era?
Ray of Light?
Chemical Brothers were coming out. This is
remember
like
Block Rockin' Beats. I remember that.
Block Rockin' Beats. Yeah.
That was about 1991-ish.
No, that was like 97.
Was it that late? Are you kidding me?
I think it was 96 or
I
97.
know. You know what? I know it was around the time when we did that tribute tune with Mike Lott for my sister about her turning into a 40-year-old hag.
God, I forgot when
And
all
she's
that
60
came
now,
out.
so that had to be 20 years ago. So yeah, but yeah, that would have been late 90s. Yeah.
The late 90s was just this weird bittersweet feeling because, graduating and then all of a sudden like getting like to that point where you're like, what's life all about? And why are all my friends out getting married? And like, it was this weird moment where I always like
disappearing.
Yeah, just weird things happening and
Disappearing into suburban, humdrum life.
quitting my old safe world of my metal band. I could always go to practice and be with my buddies and all of a sudden that's gone. It's like, I think I did that on purpose in a weird way to grow, like get rid of your, like I almost quit the Heart band a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you know
Really?
that. Yeah, I just have this thing where if I feel too comfortable or if I feel like the band is getting too comfortable and we're not growing, it's the stale water idea. I don't want to be a part of it. Yeah. And I'm like, my singer Carrie brought up a good point. She's like, Mike, give us a break, man. Like, we just finally learned 3 hours of Heart and we're sort of coasting, yes, but can we just kind of chill for a little bit?
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Stop and enjoy it for a little while.
But I could. I just felt like, like I'm always obsessing over things and like, well, yeah, we're in a good place, but what if I don't want to play 3 hours, Nobody wants to see a tribute band for 3 hours. So now our new thing is, how do we play 90 minutes, make it like a really tight show, and then have either an opening act or like a closer so we can get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense to me. That was the biggest part.
Sounds like another Mike G side project to me. Mike plays 3 hours, but he plays an hour and a half of this, an hour and a half of that.
Yeah, right. Nobody after Heart's going to want to hear like an hour of Satriani. Okay, everyone. Diddle-diddle at midnight.
You can do the G3 tour or whatever. You can do Satch, Petrucci, a little.
I was thinking about doing like a shred guitar type thing. I thought that might be so boring to people, but if I did, I could do a Satriani type like tribute. But I really want to do a Deep Purple Rainbow tribute, like a Ritchie Blackmore tribute.
I was going to say Cake tribute. That would be a nice contrast.
That would be hip. That or a Tenacious D tribute would be really cool.
It's my dream to end up in a Cake cover band. You got to call Barron up. He's totally down.
He would do it. Yeah, for sure.
He would do it.
Just when you really listen to Cake, you're like, they're actually really funky, And their
guitarist is unlike any other guitarist. I mean, he has these like totally thin AM sounding, guitar tones, and it works.
But he'll also come in with the did it all of a sudden out of nowhere. You're like, where did that come from? He has what I call traction. That's where some guitar players, you watch a whole show and you forget. You don't know what they played. They could have just been invisible. Then there's some guitar players that you're like, oh, they had traction. Like something about what they played just stays with you.
He's different in every song. Mm-hmm. And it's, bizarre stuff. I'm just like, God, it sounds like he, mic'd up a pig nose or whatever.
One of those little Marshalls right there.
Yes. Chunk, 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 chunk. And all you hear is like the chink of the pick across the strings. It's all you
That's so racist. I'm just kidding. What's funny is when I think of them, though, I think of Squirrel Nut Zippers. Remember them?
Yes.
Scared the shit out of me, man. That's like a shining band. If there was a band in the corner of the Overlook Hotel, that would be Squirrel Nut Zipper. Remember them?
Yes. Only very
satanic
little bit,
big band.
But
they were cool.
I have this great. Speaking of the '90s, I have this great CD.
What's that?
Called Live from 6A, and it was a collection of bands that were on Conan O'Brien in the 90s. And so there's Squirrel Nut Zippers were on there, Jamiroquai, Matthew Sweet, it's
Eagle Eye Cherry.
Not Eagle Eye Cherry. Bowie was on there doing a song.
Was Jewel on there?
No, but Ani DeFranco was on there.
Ooh, I still have an Ani thing going on.
Shameless. It was so good.
She was so badass at the time. Remember, she was like the badass version. I don't want to say of Alanis Morissette because Ani was already around.
She was just overmanaged.
So yeah, something happened. I don't know what it was. But what's weird is I picture them coming out together and Ani being like even though she was kind of dangerous at the time, but a lot more popular, like commercial. And then Ani was like this cool person that if you were a musician, you like better.
She just had raw power. but she's on there. Who's
Righteous Babe, wasn't that her label?
yeah.
It's perfect.
Anyway, there's some really Cake was on there doing the distance. But, so those kind of, 90s alt bands, basically, is pretty good.
It's funny, I get a good feeling when you mention all those names.
Oh, Bjork.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Human Behavior.
On Conan? Whoa,
She had
that's an early
all
song.
kinds of drums and stuff. I remember seeing her play that on Conan.
She was doing it when she was like 10. I saw a video of her singing with a full band when she was like a little kid.
Oh, yeah?
Of course, she always looks like a little kid. She's like kind
She's got those big doe
she's like a
eyes
sprite or whatever they call it.
She was emo before emo was
Yeah,
emo.
and all the girls I loved in junior high were into Bjork and Bauhaus and stuff. So it's one of those weird things. Should we
All
do
right, music questions. Go ahead.
Well, they're not all music
Time
questions.
for the interview portion of our
My
show.
Pro Tools is still working. It's up to measure 2,327.
It's long enough to be a Rush song.
Yeah, no doubt. Or a new
Dream
Dream
Theater
Theater
song.
song, yep, which is a whole album. Okay, so there's a ton of questions. It's funny, my printer had exactly the right amount of paper to get to the very end, so I thought that was a
Really?
sign.
So these are questions submitted by
Instagram,
No.
YouTube fans, mostly from the website. There's a community page that sometimes I can ask questions for. Okay, what riffs? Okay, some of these are really weird, like to read, and I won't read the names because I'm going to screw them all up. But what riffs they played wrong for a long time? You can understand what they're trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
Riffs that are always played wrong.
YYZ, the second of the
he would
three
go to
bass
Rush.
solos where it's trading with Neil Peart for was it the second? Yeah, the second riff. Thought for sure had it for years and years, and I just very recently realized it was. I mean, it plays so fast you can't hardly tell the difference. But that after seeing him play it in a video, live video, I'm like, wait, he's shifting at a different spot, and so I analyzed it a little more and realized I'd been playing it wrong all these years.
YouTube, man, is making us all have these crises because it's like, okay, I'm watching Slash play this lick, the Sweet Child of Mine wah lick right before the change, the key change, and all of a sudden I'm like, he's at the 7th fret, I'm at the 12th fret, what's going on, So, and then you could slow it down these days and realize your whole life's been
That's
a
part of why I
fraud.
quit teaching here. Is because I was like, the kids wouldn't even practice like 10, 15 minutes a week. I'm like, dude, you don't know how good you got it.
That's another question. Yep.
Yeah, you can not only,
Because it's spoon fed, they don't want it.
there's tab everywhere, for free. But not only can you see how to play so and so's famous riff, so and so has a video showing you how to play his riff,
And you can slow
slowing
it
it
down.
down and playing it for you.
You could zoom in. There's
Yeah,
a lot of
I'm
cool
like,
things.
I'm sitting here with a cassette rewinding over and over and over and over.
See, now you're the
and-
old man. I fall for that too all the time.
Right.
Like, you're damned if you do or if you don't. Like, you'll say, you have it so easy. Then you'll say what you had to do, and they'll be like, I don't want to hear that old stuff. And I didn't want to when I was a kid either.
No, I know.
Remember we would
the
take-
worst is that cassettes could be a little off pitch
Yes.
because of how fast your tape player was.
That's why you needed a Tascam 424. So you could fine tune.
So I had,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
to learn the tap part for Metropolis.
Yep.
I turned that baby all the way down so it was one octave lower and so much slower.
That must have sounded so clean and clear.
Oh, yeah. So it was like.
And you're just picturing him doing it. You're like, what's he doing? And then you have the video. I had the live video of them. What was it? Dream Theater Live in Japan or something?
Is that the one where Kevin Moore's like signed some chick's breasts or something?
Probably.
Yeah. And
That's
it's like
when
all
he-
the videos really dark and crappy.
What's funny is I picture Kevin Moore like that was his pinnacle of his life. He's like, I'm in a rock band, I'm signing boobs, I'm done, and then he quits like a few albums later.
Yeah. Sharpie drop moment.
Yeah. Sharpie drop. But just the idea of like people before me would do records and they would put it on like the faster speed or the slower speed. And now we're like slowing down Tascam, cassette tapes, and I would just do regular cassette tapes, but I would just play it, that fast speed that you would sound when you
Right.
rewound it. And it taught me so much that I'm like, I can't tell students enough how important that is to like try to figure something out. Under tough conditions, now you have the easiest way to do it and they don't want it.
But yeah, I mean, it's a skill learning how to learn a song.
Yeah.
And I mean, how many gigs do we play? Like somebody give you a set list 3 days beforehand with 40 tunes on it, and maybe 10 of them, maybe you don't, and you're learning 30 songs in a couple nights or whatever.
Western Breeze.
Paid rehearsals.
You know it's gonna come up.
No, but I think like occasionally somebody's like, my cousin's getting married. They want me to put together a band and play for their wedding, So you're playing dance for somebody's, pivotal moment of their life. And you just learned the songs the night before.
Barely. Well, one time that happened with the Breeze, it was just me and two other guys. And I remember it was Amazed, I think, by Lone Star or something. And I learned it perfect, like in my head, because I stayed up all night trying to learn it. And then I remember, I was like, okay, here we go. And the drummer was like, how's it go again? And I was like, oh, damn it.
That's classic Breeze right there.
It is. But we got through it and the crowd loved it. So I was like, who's right, But anyways, okay.
All right, next
so
question.
yeah, the Rush thing. And I said the Slash thing. But there's so many riffs that I thought I was doing right that turned out to be completely wrong. Like the beginning of You Shook Me All Night Long, I used to play an open position. And then I'm like, when I learned it the right way, everything made sense. So that and the Magic Man shit, Okay.
That's just the one that came to the top of my head. There's been others.
There's so many questions. That's perfect. Just one answer is fine. I know you have a wealth of knowledge that you could tap from. Okay, so this guy's talking about, because you play guitar too, picking motion. Like some people just use their wrists, some people use their fingers, some people use their whole arm. What's the proper way, or is it just whatever works? I mean, it always comes down to whatever works, right?
Well, to me, it depends what I'm playing. So, obviously, if I'm chording, it's from the elbow,
Well, obviously, though.
Obviously different depending on what I'm playing. Not obvious that I'm playing that when I'm chording. For me, so, if I'm strumming, especially if it's relaxed, I'm using the big muscle.
You're playing your love ballads from the 60s.
Playing from the elbow. If I'm what was that? What was that classic guitar song from Tarantino's?
Yep.
Yeah. Then I'm all wrist.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if I try to do from the elbow, I go like a tennis elbow. So it's like, it's all wrist.
And the Black Eyed Peas.
And then somewhere in the middle is most of the other stuff, which is kind of I guess it's still wrist, but it's kind of little arm.
I'm going to do a GIF of you just doing this for like an hour.
Just make sure it's full body so people don't make up their mind that I'm doing something else.
Oh, I'll add some visual effects. But yeah, you're right. Even if you're on stage, you want to look like think of the Who, full arm, just crazy.
Yeah, windmill.
Yeah, I always say, whatever fits the occasion, but if you want to get through a long show, let's say if you have a 3-hour gig, the more you could bring the energy lower, the smaller it has to be, right?
Smaller motion,
Okay.
Less fatigue, less.
And the older you get, the more your shoulders hurt when you play too much with your shoulders.
Well, don't waste a lot of motion when you don't have to. But yeah, there's a performance element too, obviously. But
yeah, a lot of people give me crap because when I play, I have a big, my pinky comes up kind of high. And a lot of shredders, they have this perfect Steve Vai, perfect hand position. But I'm a little more from the Jimmy Page Ace Frehley kind of thing, where you're not so worried about economy of motion, but it's, they play a lot with your
bring the
fingers.
pinky in when you need it. And
yeah,
most of it's 3 fingers.
Sticks out, yeah. But I do use my pinky a lot, but it does kind of have that habit of sticking out. But I'm not that much of a
I'm the same way on bass. The pinky, I didn't realize it was the Jimmy Page Ace Frehley. But
kind of is, yeah. Only because they don't, not that they stick their fingers way out, but.
Well, I could say the Getty because, he doesn't, he's not like that. In fact, he plays 95% of what he does with just one right-hand finger.
It's crazy.
He only brings in the second one when he absolutely needs it. And for him, that's not very often. But
so all those cork sniffers out there that are always like, you have to do this. I always go, you know what? Play an isolated track of Geddy Lee's bass line. You'll
Sounds
hear
like shit.
You'll hear farty sounds like he's hitting the pickup.
He hits the pickup all the time. You hear these clicks.
Yep.
But that's why nobody can replicate his sound. They got all the right stuff to give it, a little dirt and a little fat bottom and all that, but they don't. He plucks harder than hell.
Yeah.
The only way you're going to sound like him is to replicate that part,
That's why a lot of it, I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but when I would record with people, I'd try to be so clean, and then I realized that...
It's great for Toto.
I guess, yeah, I guess. But you get to the point where you're like, it's the dirty off-time stuff that really sticks with you. It's the traction again.
Well, it depends. If you're listening to, jazz fusion, shredders with Wacko playing drums and whatever, that's all clean and so awesome. It's got a vibe to it and all that. But if you're talking about rock, there's we've talked about this for years. I was so focused or obsessed on how many notes can I play fast or clean or whatever, and totally missing all the 90% of music, which is the nuance of of bend or vibrato or palm muting or what, you know,
Expression, just
all the
dynamics,
expressive elements, you know, just a half step slide or whatever into a note, you know, stuff like that. It's like I was missing all that for years and years and years.
That's kind of what makes us human. I keep saying, quit trying to make it so easy for the AI to take over, you know? Do something human. Like I'm doing a bass artist series coming up.
That's it. Fight the AI. That's a perfect, yeah.
This whole
we got
podcast.
to be expressive and, you know,
Yep.
rubato and emotion and all the stuff that, you know, roboto can't do rubato.
Go back to Zeppelin, quit this auto-tune crap. You're making it way too easy. But there's a bass line where, I'm not going to say who it is yet until it comes out, but where he slides really crudely up to the next note, where he could just play the fifth right next door.
Sabotage.
Nope.
Beastie Boys.
Nope. Not telling you.
Where he slides, say it again, slides up to the...
Well, the second note of the phrase, he elects to just slide up the same string to get the effect of sliding, the traction of sliding, versus just reaching over and hitting the fifth. And it's like, that makes a big difference. And, you know, you think you're hitting the same note, it's going to be the same thing, but try playing the same note on all four strings of a bass. They're all going to sound different, you know? Plus, how you get there is going to be different.
Another guy who did that is Les Claypool. Is it Claypool?
No, I don't have that much time. I'm going to do Les Claypool's techniques, maybe someday. Should we get through these?
Yes.
This is a great question. I like how he phrased it. Or she, I don't know who it was. What is the loneliest key for writing music? I'm curious, as I want to write a depressing song. I think we're both going to be good at this regarding the subject. According to Spinal Tap, it's D minor is the saddest key.
Lonely. I thought she meant loneliest by least used.
Loneliest? Oh, I didn't think of that. No, I think it's just sad, teenage sad stuff. Just guessing. Because all keys can sound sad depending on what you do to
You
it.
say Spinal Tap says D minor.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I just have you watched that recently?
Huh?
Have you watched Spinal Tap recently?
Not in a long time, no.
Like, when's the last time you saw it?
Oh, God, I don't know, 20 years ago?
Watch it again, you're going to catch a whole bunch of new stuff. Like little things, now that you've, been in the business a while and stuff, it's great.
Loneliest key. You first while I have time to think about that.
Loneliest. I always start with E minor or A minor.
See, I was going the same place, E minor, but E minor is dark, but I think of it more as kind of dark, either angry or scary dark, not lonely.
It's Metallica dark? Because I always think of
Well,
this.
it's Metallica because it's E. I mean, what percentage of their songs
Now,
are based on the lowest string of a 6-string guitar?
Many other ballads are in A minor, thank you. No, but I always think of this. That kind of sad, I don't know, that'd be a Quentin Tarantino sad.
Yes.
But it's E minor sound or E minor 7 or something. But I don't know why. I just think guitar is so friendly for those two keys, just the way it's laid out. D minor's a little weirder.
I don't know. I think I was going to say F sharp minor.
Ooh, whoa.
So it only has 3 sharps, unlike F sharp major. But
F sharp minor is fun because in guitar, I don't know if you play the open chords for F sharp minor, but it's after the F sharp minor, it's a piece of cake.
I'm pretty much, E, A, C, D, those kind of things on guitar.
Why can't you just do everything in G and use a capo? That's what they say. Okay, cool.
Guitarists have the capo, keyboardists, they
Pitch button.
Yeah, and
bass players
need to start using the capo or something. Could you imagine a bass string being, you got a capo 5 on a bass string, and it's like, it would be so intense on the vibration.
Who's
of the
the guy that does all the Michael Mannering or whatever?
Yes.
Does all the weird bass tune?
He can shift. He's got shifters up here and he's got shifters down here, and he can go like.
Look him up. He's playing someone's basement, and he's doing all this stuff. You can't believe it.
He's talking to him while he's tuning that up.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that video, and it's like, I remember looking at the comments. It's like, one of the greatest bass players ever has got to play in some guy's, den for $2,000 because
probably not even that.
Yeah,
probably
because
a drink.
he's got to make a living.
What's his name again?
He can his on hyper bass. He can go at least a whole step either direction on every string.
That's crazy.
So he does all these crazy altered tunings. Like, I'm having a hard enough time with just standard tunings, remembering where everything is. But he does so many harmonics, and he does
the harmonics are what's cool.
Yeah, so he'll do 3 basses, and he'll have one tune to just do open bar harmonics like this, slap, boom, all these chordal harmonics, and then he's tapping each, left hand on one bass and right hand on the other.
Yeah, so a chord will go from like an open major chord to like a major 7 by flipping a switch of some kind. Michael Mannering, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he
so crazy.
Yeah, and it's an extra firm. Well, I mean, Zons are already, composite necks anyway, but
I thought it'd be like an ebony neck so it can never move or whatever. I don't know
no,
how
it's
that
like,
works.
this is like, whatever composite stuff. I mean, you could go like this on your knee and it wouldn't even bend. But so it can stand the tension of that much, detuning and uptuning and all that
I was
stuff.
going to say, because all the other strings stay in tune somehow.
Yeah. But it's you can see in that video where he's talking. It takes him forever. He's got to try it and then flip it and then try it and flip it. It takes forever to tune up. But
He wasn't even using a tuner, was he?
no, done it all by ear.
I'd have like 7 snarks. Like, okay, that one's good.
He's crazy, freaking good, and nobody knows who he is. But
That's usually the case. If you're going to go that geeky on something, you have to be ready for that.
one of the most important things I ever learned. I learned from one of his videos was the permutations thing. For one, you talk about the hand position. If you hold your fingers like this, there's 24 possible sequences and 4 notes you could play. And so I just, it helps you learn real quickly which ones you're weak at.
Oh, for sure.
Third finger.
Ever try to go 3 4 2 4 1 4?
Like 3 4 2 1 was a hard one for me.
Yep. That's why the spider thing I always preach is important, because you don't know what parts of your brain are not worked, and then all of a sudden you'll do a riff and you're like, why does this feel so bad? Because you haven't gone through those yet.
But like half of that video was before even the permutations was how he warms up, because he practiced like 14 hours a day. He never had any wrist injuries, hand injuries, anything like that. And he, just basic stuff. He like put his hand, he'd hit a note and he'd try to see how little pressure he could put with his left hand to make the note ring. And you work on that for like 5 minutes. Because that's one of my things. I tend to press too hard with my left
sure,
hand.
we all do, yeah.
I'm actually screwing my intonation up,
Especially when you get nervous about to play live, you usually do that.
Yeah, everything's sharp because you press it so hard. But stuff like that. And he had some really good, warm-up exercises and that kind of thing. But
I
anyway.
almost thought I had carpal tunnel 3 months ago, and I thought my guitar playing days were over. I was in the shower, and I went to grab the shampoo, and I couldn't even hold the shampoo bottle. It fell out of my hands. It hurt so bad.
Make sure it's not your elbow.
No,
that's what's happened
it was
to me.
this. Really?
Elbow. Like if I throw a game of darts,
It's like golf.
next day I can barely hold a glass of water.
Tennis elbow, is that what they call it?
But it affects wrist and strength
Everything
in the hand.
seems to. It's all connected,
Yeah.
like Terminator. If you ever see the thing open up, all those pistons.
Yeah.
I have a very girly, I shouldn't say that, but a very skinny forearm. Surprisingly, I choke people with it.
Lean and mean.
Yeah, right. We arm wrestled once, Wink, wink, wink.
I've never got that rematch.
I've never seen you so mad in my life. It's because I have tall arms, so I was able to. Okay, but anyways, so I was.
I had
worried.
you this close to a rematch in my house, and you backed out at the last
I did.
minute.
I wanted to die here.
You're like, I want to be able to go to my grave saying I beat Pepke in arm wrestling.
What's funny is because that's back when you were so sure of everything. Remember that?
Well, I'm like, okay, and I'm like, oh, he's serious, crap, and you already had me down here.
Sure.
And then once I was down
didn't
here,
have any
it's like I
witnesses,
couldn't come
did we?
back.
Yeah, once you get to a certain point in arm wrestling, it's tough. But I used leverage. I used jiu-jitsu before I even knew about jiu-jitsu. But I was afraid because I had a 3-hour show that night, and I couldn't even hold a shampoo bottle. Somehow I got through the night. But sounds so dumb, but it's because for 3 days in a row, I was going to Barnes & Noble, and I'd get a coffee and just read. And I, for some reason, bought a cookie at the same time. So for some reason, eating 3 cookies in 3 days with that sugar, I think it was artificial sugar in it or something,
Really?
messed me up. Yeah, and I realized then how toxic sugar was for me, at least.
I thought you were going to say you were holding like a nook like this, because
Nope.
I got a 7-inch tablet that I did a lot of reading on at one point, and
That
the
could do
next
it,
day
though.
it was like, holy, because my hands were so wide, holding it wide like this,
It's an unnatural position.
Yeah, you didn't even think about it.
Isn't that weird? So yeah, it's one of those things where repetitive anything can mess you up, or sugar.
Yeah,
Quit sugar,
It's
everyone.
what are they? Inflammatory, right?
It is. And once something's inflamed, if you stress it, it seems to be 10 times the pain.
more
it would have been.
inflamed.
So it's bad.
Wow.
Dude, do we have so many pages here? I'm going to have to skip a few. How did you get into music? I'm going to pee while you answer that.
How'd I get into music? God. Well, music in general I've been into for as long as I can remember. I remember being like 3 and going over to my neighbor's house, and they had like some accordions on the floor in their living room, and I was like all excited. And there's musical instruments. I wanted to play them. So I just gravitated towards music from the outset. But what really kind of launched me was my brother, who's 7 years older than me, invited me into his room one day in 1980 and saying, listen to this. He played the beginning of Tom Sawyer by Rush. He's like, listen to how he says pride. Isn't that cool? And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And I was like, that's when I really started getting into rock. 'Cause before that, I had, like a Billy Joel album and, stuff like that. But that's when I really started getting into rock. But music in general, for as long as I can remember. Long enough that I can't even remember when I started getting into music. There, I filled all your time in for your potty
Thank
break.
you. Appreciate it.
You can go back and watch it later. You can find it in the middle of the 3 hours.
Did you lift your shirt up a few times?
Did
Okay.
a little flex.
Yes.
All right, what else?
Okay.
Well, we'll go rapid fire through these. I'll try. We'll try
Cool.
instead of getting sidetracked with discussions like we always do. We'll try to take a Twitter approach on these.
Sounds good. We'll both throw a
Tweetable
quick
answers.
answer at it. I got into music when my cousin brought over a Kiss album. Kiss Alive. It'll change your life. Trust me. Okay, maybe detail both of your struggles as early musicians, difficulties with respective instruments, passion, creativity.
That's a lot of questions in one there.
I would say just what was your biggest struggle as a musician starting out?
Stage fright. I don't know why. It's, afraid to look stupid in front of people. And I played in front of people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, once I got into it and started playing after about 10 minutes or whatever, I was usually fine.
Yep.
But, I'd just be in knots sometimes. It just depended on the show. Some shows, no big deal. Other shows, it would be,
You hadn't discovered booze by then?
No.
You're in junior high?
Yeah. So that was my biggest barrier.
That's good.
What about you?
Cutting off my entire social life for it. All of a sudden, not that I had one, but the possibility of having one. Just being like, head to the guitar, drooling. You just be playing for
Right.
6 hours. Next thing you look up, it's midnight. Oh, I got to go to school tomorrow. Shoot. The whole day thinking about it. It's this
Guitar,
weird
yeah.
obsession, yeah. So just becoming a hermit and then realizing in the end it was a good thing,
That's
I
kind
think.
So I said we go through these fast. But
No.
that's when my wife was always like, why aren't you pushing music on, the kids more and all that kind of stuff. And I said, part of what I told you you're gone is, I was at a neighbor's when I was 3 and they had accordions on their living room floor. Like, I got all excited. I wanted to touch them and play with them. I've been that way from as long as I can remember. My son, he's in band now. He's been playing trombone a couple of years and he's
Cool.
decent. But
That's a hard instrument.
he, I didn't push him into it, and I'm like, he's not like me. He's really discovering music now, but that just like got to do it like you.
When you got into
got to play
Queen?
for 6 hours. That's how you know you're gonna be musical for the rest of your life. In some extent, it may not be what you make money at, but you're gonna have music in your life. You're not gonna be somebody who plays in band in high school and then never picks up their clarinet again.
So you want him to find it organically almost?
Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna go all Earl Woods on him and
Was that?
Tiger Woods' dad? Yeah,
Oh,
everybody
yeah,
joked
for
that he taped a golf club into Tiger's hands, and
there's
like,
always
if
another
he's
side to
into
that.
it, he'll be into it, and then I'll teach him as much as he wants to be taught. But
That's respectable, man. A lot of people want a clone of themselves as a kid.
or they see they didn't quite make it in sports or music or whatever, and so they're like, if I give my knowledge to my kid early enough, then they can make it, and try to live vicariously through them.
Someday we'll be able to do that, I'm sure, where instead of having a separate person, like forcing it on them, you could just create another you and just be like, this time I'm going to start guitar when I'm 1.
It'll be
See
like
what happens.
Gattaca, the six-fingered pianist.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Did you ever see Gattaca?
No, but I could imagine playing guitar like that. But here's the thing. I always tell people, I'm actually going to make a video about it soon, about not to be envious of like prodigies or, when you want to play something, you look.
If you turn on YouTube for 5 minutes, you want to kill yourself.
There's a 4-year-old across the world playing it better than you ever will. But where do they end up? That's the question. We'll leave that for the video. Okay. So, when should a guitarist get a second guitar? Or bassist?
Well, it's a two-step answer. One, only if they're. I assume they mean from the standpoint of owning 2 at once and not like graduating to the second guitar.
Yeah.
So, don't even consider it unless your first guitar is once. Otherwise, replace your first guitar. Don't get a second one.
Gotcha.
Guitar or bass or whatever. And then, only then, either when you have tons of money that you have nothing to do with, or there's an actual specific purpose that the second guitar will serve. Like for me, I got a fretless. Okay, I can't in any way make a fretless sound on my fretted bass. Only a fretless bass can do that, so I got a fretless.
Sure.
You know?
So you got it for specific second sounds that you needed.
Right. And it's different, totally different style of playing, and it's still, I use it 5% of the time, but, so I have two basses.
That's
one fretted
good.
and one fretless.
Yeah. And you've got a lot out of your fretless over the years, so it paid off.
Yeah.
It's not just sitting in the corner. Yeah, or if you're joining a band and you're going to play live and you need a backup or something. Is always nice.
True.
Luckily, I had a drummer who had a dad who had a awesome SG that I could use as a backup, but
having a backup, I feel like, is more important for guitar
Yep.
than bass, especially because it's so much easier to break a string.
I've never seen a bass player break a string on stage, but I saw
I thought
someone...
Corey did once.
Who did?
I thought Corey did way back. Like
He, first gig at 7th Street Entry, he somehow melted his speaker cable. All of a sudden, we got done with the first song, and I hear, "Stop! Hold on!"
I could swear I remember him
smoking.
saying he broke an E string. I'm like, how do you break an E string on bass?
I saw, okay, so back in the day, the band Typo Negative, Pete Steele, do you know that band? They played, and I shook his hand. His hand was like 3 times my hand. I was like, "Hello, Dracula." And at the end of his Ozfest set, he broke every string with his thumb, one by one. He was this huge, he died.
Jeez.
But, like, that's freaky. But yeah, besides that, I've never seen someone break a string on stage that I know of, bass player.
Yeah.
That would suck to have your ego out. You'd have to really know your neck.
Yeah. So, yeah, backup's a little more important for guitar.
Or would you tune your A down to E?
If I broke the E, well, I got the 6th string, so I just play on the B
True.
string.
There you go. Okay, yeah, we'll knock these out now. Does knowing what notes to play come with experience, or is it a skill derived from scale knowledge? That could mean a few things.
It's both. I mean,
Yeah.
where you want, it's easiest to know this by working backwards. Where you want to get to is the point that you don't have to think about it. And to not have to think about it, you have to first learn it in a book-wise way. It doesn't mean you have to read it in a book, but you have to be able to look at your neck and say, here's where all the notes are. And then, you learn scale patterns and chord patterns and whatever, and pretty soon it just kind of all melds together into this, morphs into this abstract knowledge that you just have and muscle memory and all that. And
True.
I mean, one thing I've never been able to do, but I think it's a great idea, and one of my college instructors said is scat and play what you scat,
Scat can mean many things these days. What do you mean by that?
Right. Vocal scat, as
Okay.
in jazz,
Gotcha.
bee-bop-a-doo-ba-ba.
Gotcha.
And as you're singing those notes, try to play along with them.
That's
the idea
high-level
being that
stuff,
you
yep.
can find on your neck what's coming out of your mouth. You not necessarily know that it's an A or a B or whatever, but you're understanding like interval relationships and
Phrases.
stuff like that.
Like-
So it's a
That's called, in my opinion, instant transcribing. Like you hear an idea and boom, it comes through you. That's a high level, really high level of improvising, versus trying to force something just by knowing a scale.
right.
Because anyone can do that. Like you can hand someone a guitar and say, play these 3 places and make something happen. But to hear something first and then have it come through you is high level.
Another great thing, I mean, even if you're starting by learning scales and, like, oh, this is a C on my neck or whatever, is playing the scales modally, Play major scales starting on, the 2 or on the 6 or whatever. So you're not reaching for your neck and, playing the standard, my middle finger starts on the root, or my index finger starts on the root and I play this pattern, start on the 6, for those who are at a basic level, the 6th note of your, scale, start there, start at the 2nd note of your scale and try to play the rest of it. That'll help you learn your neck and learn notes easier, and in a versatile way that's more usable.
You hear things differently too when all of a sudden you're hearing like a Dorian sound versus just starting on the first
All
tone.
right. I mean, you could learn the modes, but to me, I'm going to play Dorian now isn't the same as just saying I'm going to play a C major and I'm going to start riffing on D, or whatever. It's not quite the same. I mean, it's great to learn modes, and I think people should, but you're right. It's totally different sound. I mean, that's what makes a song sound Russian. It's
Right.
it's it's Phrygian. That's why they start on the 3. That's what makes it sound Russian.
Isn't that weird? So you just got to go a
they're
few
playing
steps
major
up
scales, but they're just starting on the 3,
Yeah, and it makes you feel different just from starting in a different spot. It's so bizarre. Cool. Right. When you know you have all the skills you need under control, how do you just let go and trust yourself? How does one get in the zone?
I'll let you know when I get all the skills.
Yeah, I like that. Me too. We'll let you know. Give us another 3 lifetimes or so.
If you have all the skills, it just, again, it happens natively. It's the muscle memory, the study, the practice. I was like what Adam Nitty says. He's like, we practice at 120%. So that when we go play, like we can relax to the 100%.
I do that when I work out. Like, do 40 push-ups if you're going to have to do 30 in a competition or something. Jiu-jitsu, wear yourself out in training so that when you actually do it, you have a lot in the gas tank because you're used to such higher stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to be playing live where you're doing your 100%, you're concentrating, and you can't be free, you can't be expressive, you can't enjoy yourself if you're that focused. So
that's how I literally fine-tuned my drumming skills. One time I was playing with a band that did 3 hours. It was an outdoor gig. Everybody was drinking margaritas and getting drunk. It was fun. But I had to play a country shuffle the whole night. And my shuffle sucked back then, so I got really good. But the funny thing is I was doing this when I was drumming, like Ricky Rocket or something, just using my arms quite a bit. And then
Animal from
the next
Muppets.
the next day I was dead. I had to lay in bed the whole day. I felt like I had to be in a full body cast. And I realized that I was using way too much energy and just doing stuff I didn't need to do. And now when you watch me drum, I'm like this. Everything's very core based. So I'm just like,
and we kind of touched on this earlier. I mean, watch any good musician. They're barely moving.
Yeah.
I mean, the parts of them that are playing are barely moving.
Right.
I
think the more you have to like force your body to physically do something, the more you're going outside that zone of true musicianship, because you could just, it's like breathing. You don't have to force yourself to breathe,
Yep.
Okay. Wow, we're still on the first page. Okay, we're almost to the bottom of this.
We're going faster now, though.
What's your approach to creating interesting new chord progressions? Mr. College, write symphonies guy.
I'd say just pick something different to do and try it. So, like, there's 2 things I've done. One is, and one's a ripoff from Adam Nitty. So if I'm playing, let's say if I just put my hand on a guitar and I'm playing G major chord, instead of thinking I'm in G and, wanting to play a C and a D, I'll think...
You don't want to make money?
I'll think I'm in D and I'm already on the 4, and... So take the chord you're playing and put it in a different key, or maybe it's the 6 in a minor key or whatever, and go from there. So that's one thing. The other thing is to instead of, we naturally we do 4-5-1, or 4-6-5, or, if you're jazzy, 2-5-1. 1, you don't have to end on the 1. And if you end on the 1, it doesn't have to be a major 1. It could be a minor 1. It could be a minor 7, whatever. If you're playing blues, it can be a 7 chord, right? You can get interesting sounds if you move by thirds, minor, major thirds. So, if you're playing a G, go to a B flat, and then from there, go to a D flat or whatever,
G to B flat always sounds, it's funny because you're going to that minor note, but you're making a chord out of it. So it sounds just really interesting. Kind of a good way to end a song in a weird way. Like I would go from G to B flat to C to G, and it always seems to work for like the end of a song.
If you move by thirds, it'll instantly sound more dramatic and more like a Hollywood film score. I can tell you that.
See, the symphonic side of you.
That's a lot of the Hollywood film music moves by thirds or fourths.
I was interested in that. Like when you do this interval, it evokes this emotion, and you can eventually get to there by doing this. I love that stuff.
They like thirds and tritones is what they like to move by.
Tritones.
Moving by tritone, you really don't feel like you have any kind of key center when you do that. So
I get most inspired by moving in fourths. Thank you. The old "I Will Survive," the sawtooth motion.
To me, the most creative, ingenious chordal song ever is the Christmas song.
Oh yeah, for sure.
it's just a series of 2-5-1s in about 20 different keys.
I tell people, if you want to know great composing, listen to Christmas songs. They're just
It's incredible. Yeah, no, it's an innocuous, mellow sounding song. Nobody has any idea how crazy the chord progression is in it.
Well, because you grew up hearing it, you just think it's normal.
Right.
You just don't even think about it. How about something like, does music today influence people choosing to play guitar?
I don't think so.
Well, the good thing is all these biopics are coming out now. Elton John just came out. Queen came out. Influence your son, right?
True, but he not to play guitar, so interested him
to dress up all crazy,
rock music.
That's cool. I think we need that outlet because I think the more we stick with what's today, I don't even know what that is, but it feels really straight laced and quantized. I think you're going to need that outlet, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's like I said, that's when it was artistic, I mean, my biggest problem with pop music, now I've never had a problem with pop music. It serves its purpose. It can be catchy, whatever. Is it really, this is where I've become the guy who says, get the ball out of my yard. I listen to Post Malone and I listen to Drake and I'm like, which one's which?
You're like, yeep.
They're it's like, I got the same song over and over, singing the same melody, no variation. It's like there's no melody. It's just.
Or does it just sound like that to you because we're old?
Partially, I'm sure.
Because I remember showing my grandma Metallica, and she's like, "That just sounds like angry music," and I'm like, "There's so much
as
more
a musician and somebody classically trained, I could say it's like it's a very flat. There's no up and down. I mean, what makes music work, any compositional technique in anything is variance and familiarity. You veer off to do something different, relief from what they've been hearing, and then you go back to the familiar sounding thing. That is the basic formula in all music ever written.
And stories.
And if you just stay on the same thing over and over and over, you never get that. You never get that variance.
What if you lower expectations, though?
Huh?
What if you just lower everyone's expectation?
Right. So maybe we can call it the minimalist period in pop music.
There you go.
I don't know.
It goes back to the minimalists.
Yeah,
The other day
we had it in classical music in the 70s. We can get it in pop music now, 50 years later.
I was at a music store the other day, and all of a sudden I was just buying something for the camera. No, what was it? Something for my recorder. And all of a sudden I hear this dubstep going on in the other room. Someone was trying out PA speakers. And in the back of my head, I had to think, did someone make that, or did someone just hit play on the demo of a keyboard? You know what I mean? And that's when I knew something's.
Well, so I will say the exception is there's this new influx that I'm starting to see, even as an old dude. When I occasionally tune into YouTube, bands like Polyphia. Do you know about Polyphia or
sounds
the
like
guitar player
Periphery.
Pliny?
Yep.
Okay, so I mean these guys, it's kind of prog kind of math rock, but
math rock, yeah.
But dropping the gent part, the junk junk, and it's really melodic and really good stuff. I mean, that's what I love about Pliny is like we used to talk about, I remember when Dream Theater would actually write good music, it's like before they just became, a band making equations, and seeing how heavy they could get, their first, well, not their first three, but their albums 2, 3, and 4, when they wrote good music, and so some of these bands, they're no vocals, it's instrumental rock, but it's so fresh sounding. And so those bands might inspire people to play guitar.
I think it's out there. We just have to find it sometimes.
I think that movement's growing. I think instrumental rock is getting legs just because rock has disappeared. So something's got to fill that gap. Name me, other than the Foo Fighters, name me a rock band.
Well, a lot of it, like I said, is like these genre that kind of get their niche audience. Is it niche? Niche? I don't know what to say.
Niche. If you want to be, if you want to sound sophisticated.
I want to say niche.
Otherwise, if you want, just be a Midwesterner, just say niche.
Yeah. I was just having a little argument about LaCroix water. Some people say La Croix. What the hell's that?
If you're in France, you can call it La Croix.
Okay.
If you're in the Midwest, you call it LaCroix.
When I drink tea, I stick my pinky out. So should I be saying, I don't know.
All right, if you go canoeing on the river that divides Minnesota and Wisconsin, do you call it the LaCroix River or do you call it the LaCroix?
It's LaCroix all the way. Yeah. LaCroix. Okay. What's your favorite guitar brand or bass brand and why? Got to be careful. Sponsorships. Future sponsorships. I watched Flashdance the other day. And you ever watch 80s product placement? It's so obvious now when you're older. Like watch the Goonies, watch.
Were they already doing it in the 80s?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It all goes back to, I think, the Mad Men era, But she was holding a Diet Pepsi, and she was spinning, and she went, "Oh, I spilled some Diet Pepsi on myself. Ooh, it was so sad."
That's hilarious.
I was like, I can't believe it's that blatant.
Yeah, it's much more subliminal now.
Yeah.
But I got to say, I mean, I would only now that the semi-custom manufacturer of my two basses doesn't really exist anymore.
Carvin?
Yeah, they split theirs.
Now they're
It's a name.
a lot of shredders use their guitars. I can't think of the name though.
Kincaid. I don't know.
Kiesel.
Kiesel.
Yeah.
Right. So, and they make some of the same stuff. They do.
I like Kincaid
But
better.
if I were going to buy, and I went to them partially to get what I needed with 6-string basses and 6-string fretless and whatever, and I love them. But like in general, I would only buy 2 basses. There's not that there's not other good basses out there, but I would either buy a Rickenbacker or a Fender Jazz. I don't like the precision. Some people do, but
Those P
for
basses are
mix
big for some people.
for rock at least, for mix of bite and punch, but also some low end, and as far as being well built and playable, those are far and away the 2 best basses in my opinion.
Nice.
I miss my old Ricks.
Yeah.
But
You sold them for like $10.
yeah, and they do make a 5-string, but it's like a new production one, and it's got weird looking pickups. It doesn't look like a Rick to me. So
I'll buy a Rick if you buy one. We'll go in together. I'll get a guitar.
we'll do Beatles.
Yeah, I'll do the 12-string or something. Play some Birds or something. That's a good answer. It's hard because, you played your whole life all different kinds of basses and guitars, but for me, it depends on the project I'm working with. If I'm doing an SRV thing, there's no way I'm going to play a Les Paul, But the Les Paul feels too heavy if I do a 3-hour show, so I play my SG. And then when I hold my Jackson, it feels like heaven because it seems so easy compared to those 2 guitars.
Yeah.
So it just depends, I think.
Like I said, my answer for those 2 is based on rock bass. If it was jazz or
Yeah.
something, it would be different. But
That's funny, jazz bass for rock, but P bass for jazz.
no, P bass, not at all. It's a redwood tree.
My bass player for the Heart Band just bought a P bass. He'd cry right now.
He's going to be mad at me. I
No,
don't know what the hell I'm
those
talking
P bass people, they're serious though. Where should one really start learning guitar, and where should one go from there? Oof. That's like
about.
asking.
One should start learning guitar from
theartofguitar.com.
.com.
You don't want 30 years of experience. That's your problem.
Yeah, so I would, wet your whistle on Art of Guitar YouTube videos, and then work your way over to the website and shell out buku dollars and shred overnight.
Yes. $10 a month. Never go to anyone else's channels.
Even if their ads come on before your Art of Guitar video.
Like, what's that one? Musician.
Yeah, that cracks me up.
I know.
Like your biggest viewed videos, they have musician ads before them. That's so funny.
You know what's funny is I actually I have YouTube Red, so I never see the ads.
Oh.
But when someone told me that, I'm like, oh, God. And then I have these people asking if they could sponsor endorse me. And they're like, other things that teach you guitar. And I'm like, so that seems like a conflict of interest, I don't know. Maybe.
If you want to send me awesome gear for free, go ahead.
This one company just asked, because I never take those anymore, because I hate the feeling of pushing things on people if they don't know I'm doing it. But this one acoustic guitar company just wrote to me the other day. They're like,
In
"You
Wisconsin?
They're called Orangewood or something like that. I'll specify it later when I get it. You want an acoustic guitar if you just play it in your videos?" I'm like, well, I do need an electric acoustic for the Heart Band, so sure. And they're going to send me one, and I got to pick the kind of wood I want. All that stuff's kind of cool. But I always want to make it known. Like, the only endorsements I've ever done were water bottles. There's a water company I love that I buy their stuff anyway, and they're like, "We'll give you a free thing of water if you just have a bottle hanging around somewhere." So sometimes you'll see a bottle just hanging around. So what do they call that? Full disclosure.
Yes.
How do you create a song? I just did a whole video on how to write a song in 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I said,
Then you should answer this one.
well, I just said you can go the route where, you think songs should just come to you in a dream like they always seem to in movies. Or you read stories. But that's after these artists have, I don't know, just cultivated the creative muse. Like, if you ever read the book The War of Art before, it talks about
The War of Art? No, that's awesome
it's a great,
title.
great book. But the best book on creativity is called If You Want to Write by Brenda Ueland. She's actually from Minnesota. And she's this lady who used to walk for miles every day with no stimulus. She would just like no headphones or anything. She would just go for walks. And that would like ideas would come to her during the walks, and it was like her way of meditating. So I always say start by just doing a generic, hey, here's 3 chords that go together. Lay it down. Go with the order of a song. You know, we all want to pretend we're super original, but when it comes down to it, we all want to hear verse, chorus, verse, chorus. Yeah. And so I'm like, you know what? Listen to your favorite song and just write down the formula. It's usually intro, verse, chorus, you know, pre-chorus maybe, bridge, double chorus.
Pre-chorus.
Yeah, I love the pre. I love some of my favorite songs have the best pre-choruses ever.
I heard a song with a post-chorus the other day. That was kind of cool.
Whoa. Isn't that usually just they go back into the main progression, but they just go oh or something after?
or in jazz, it's the shout chorus. Is what you have.
I like that.
But no, there's techniques. One thing I've learned is the more you just play for fun, you get a ton of ideas, and all it takes is a little idea. I mean, think of what is Beethoven's most seminal work. 4 notes. He made a whole symphony out of 4 frickin' notes. All 4 movements use those 4 notes to a varying degree. Like the 4th movement, it's triplets. Da 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 da.
Interesting.
So you don't need much, and then you take something like you say, you plug it into a formula. That's what Mozart did. He'd come up with something. He's like, okay, it's classical period, so I'll play that once, then I'll repeat it and play it again.
I'm so out of it. I thought that was Mozart. Da, 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 da.
No, it's Beethoven.
Beethoven is what I call him. Okay, you remember Amadeus? Remember Amadeus?
Yes.
When
Salieri?
Yeah, when he was like, okay, here's my song, and he sang it, and the guy didn't know it, and then he's like, now here's Mozart, and I thought he sang that song. And
no,
like,
dun, 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 dun,
okay.
Ein Nacht music.
Sorry to my music teachers in the past. But the guy sang the
actually,
whole thing.
in real life, Mozart and Salieri were actually friends. I learned in college, so
okay.
They took a lot of liberty in that movie. But
what about Vivaldi? No one ever talks about him.
it's because he's Baroque.
Other
than the Four Seasons,
it's not his fault he didn't make any money.
and he did string
Baroque.
quartets.
My first dad joke. You gotta hand it to me. He wasn't broke. He was Baroque. Baroque fudge, as we called it.
Sure, that's only ginger ale.
Sorry, yes.
Canada
Dry.
But no, anyway, it's a serious technique. Putting on my composer hat here, is when writing a song, especially the musical part. Think of the music as language. Think of it like you're writing a poem. Example I always gave was, I went to the mountains. I went to the ocean. I went to the desert. Yet I found nothing. So you got.
Isn't that John Denver?
You got 3 lines that are all. I went somewhere. I went somewhere. I went somewhere, and then you sum them up at the end. So you take your riff and you whatever, and you do A and then A plus and then an A plus plus, and then you do B to sum them all up. So you can, whatever little chunk of music you have,
I like that.
you can flesh it out into a whole chorus by doing that.
It's almost like throwing a ball up just to knock it out of the park, right? You're setting yourself up, and knocking it out. Okay.
And that's,
Jack
composers
White
for years did that kind of stuff, and they, harvest from yourself. You can harvest a little piece from somebody else, whatever. Composers. Every big composer ripped off from other composers. It's
But someone had to
take
come
a little.
first.
Ooh, I love that. 3 chords together. I'm going to use that, and then build something out of it. But that trying to make like a poem with music, that's a great technique to get your creative juices flowing.
Here's a question though: is that true though? Because what if, as humans, we just gravitate towards certain vibrations, like the 145 sound, like it goes and like travels and it comes back. Like, what if the very first thing that ever happened was just someone hitting a tritone for an hour? Like, would that be in our system to where we love hearing that instead of
probably
interesting?
Yeah. The early music, was all. Literally for years, the only keys were C, G, and F.
And then just fifths, right?
Yeah, and so it wasn't even until, was it 1600s, or some people started using thirds in chords,
That must have been the end of the world.
And it was so novel and sounding, and then of course you get the 21st century and people are doing, using seconds and, cluster chords and whatever,
Music would be creepy if it was all. It sounded like just chants or something all the time, like Gregorian.
It did. That's what it sounded like. Yeah. I mean, they're literally called the church keys, C, G, and F. So
Interesting.
and then equal temperament tuning came around, and that's when Bach started writing like lesson materials in all 12 keys.
I thought that's when the Nazis made A440 a thing. Did you hear about that? That's why A432 or whatever is actually the real key you're supposed to be in, or the real pitch you're supposed to be in.
Equal temperament is supposed to be A432.
Look it up. Look into it.
Sounds a little. Sounds like.
It sounds weird, but okay. So there's a thing called somatic. I don't know what it's called, but they take a big plate and they put sand on it and they buzz a frequency through it. Have you seen that? And it creates patterns. It's the weirdest thing. And they did A440 pattern, and it was this blurry kind of star-looking thing. And then they fine-tuned it to A432, and it became very sharp-looking. And they say that there's a conspiracy theory about it. Like,
I don't know if the Nazis existed in like early 1700s when Bach was working on equal temperament.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't invent it. He just like, okay, now that we have equal temperament, well, there's 12 keys. I'll write stuff in all 12 keys.
but that's different from...
With my 17 children.
Oh, there's so much I don't know. We'll go down this whole conspiracy path some other day. But I'm going to send you a video. They change the frequency, and all of a sudden, the sand pattern becomes something completely different. But it looks like a kaleidoscope, like perfect shapes. It's really scary. But it would explain, like, reality in a weird way if you think about it. It all began with a word, right? Okay, ready?
Yeah. Next so we're on page 2 yet?
Yes, we are actually.
All right.
Let's see. Your most influential musicians.
I'll pick a few from different genres. Classical, it's Mozart and Schubert and Debussy.
I never knew that's how you pronounce Debussy.
And then in rock, obviously, I mean, as a bass player, Ged's my man. But there's so many. God, I mean, Steve Vai is a huge influence to me. And
he's doing videos now on YouTube, like just straight out. Here's how I play this, and this. So I feel
that's what I'm saying. Kids got it made these days. And get your ball out of my yard.
Or do they? Because the mystery goes away. Like Steve Vai was a mythical creature.
I mean, when Passion Warfare came out, I mean, he was doing stuff on there. I'm like, nobody's going to be doing anything like this for 20 years.
He had the Eventide harmonizers already doing all that crazy stuff.
It was so crazy. So, I mean, bass players, I mean, Adam Nitti is my guy right now. I mean, he could do anything.
How do you spell his last name?
Nitti. He's just incredible. He can jazz, funk, fingerstyles, soloing, sweep arpeggios. I mean, but tastefully musical. I mean, he's got like 5 CDs, kind of jazz fusion. I mean, he gets together guys like Weckel and that kind of thing. But it's really like good jazz. He's a good composer. I mean, it's fusion. It's jazz rocky. It's electric instruments. It's just instrumental music, and it's really good.
Dave Weckel's still out doing it.
I mean, he's writing saxophone parts and stuff like that. I mean, so he's just a great all-around musician and a cool dude, and also, a guy who'll just like show you online how to play his stuff, and
that's crazy. You can learn right from the source.
Yeah, I know. And so let's see, and then trying to think, jazz. There's so many dudes. Fusion guys, I don't know.
Those guys are there just to scare us, just to show us that we have a lot more to learn.
I was a big Thelonious Monk guy, but
I was going to say that he's an example of crude but brilliant playing versus being just super shiny when you play.
I think it's funny is he starts so many of his songs with the same on piano. It's funny. I got one of his like best of CDs, and I jumped around to like 4 different songs. I'm like, yep, that is literally the exact same riff that he's. It's like him opening the curtain on a song, basically.
Well, it's funny because he'll just ding, 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 like I would play piano, ding, 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 but it's really musical. And Like he's tapping from somewhere else. These people are lying to you if they say otherwise. They're connected to something. By the way, I'm skipping a bunch because we answered a bunch of these questions.
All right.
Megadeth
Just in our
versus
random chatting.
Megadeth versus Metallica.
I gotta go with Metallica on that one, man.
For why?
Just because Dave Mustaine's voice, if no other reason.
Well, you could also argue that metal shouldn't be pretty. It should be as
Really, if you can argue those two, why don't you throw in Anthrax and Sepultura at the same time and just have it
Testament
about the four of them, you know?
Yeah, it's the big four. You know, do you know about that? Slayer,
for
Megadeth, Anthrax, Metallica.
Yeah. I mean, some parts of me thinks Anthrax might have been more creative, but I mean,
they were definitely hip at one time. Remember when I'm the Man, or was it Attack of the Killer Beast came out? Remember that? And there was like, this is like rap mixed with this.
Well, 50% of why they're good is just Scotty Ian's, beard. That's, and the fact he wore shorts all the time.
Yeah. But, he was like into some really crazy stuff before it got big, And he's, I don't know.
Well, and did they do that tune with Run DMC before Aerosmith did Walk This?
No.
Or no, not Run DMC. They did it with Chuck D and Flavor Flav, Public Enemy.
Yeah.
I thought they did that before Aerosmith did Walk This Way.
I don't think so. I think Walk This Way was in the 80s. And let's turn to our friend Goog.
Well, yeah, because Run DMC was big before Public Enemy. So
You're talking about Bring the Noise, right?
Yeah.
That was a cool tune. If you haven't heard it, Anthrax, Bring the Noise. No, that was way after. Because I remember being at Chris's house for the summer that we went from playing basements to First Avenue, I'll call it. I'm going to do a video on that. Just the idea of putting in
playing basements
parties and stuff to playing First Avenue. But he had that CD and it had just come out. So it had 94. That was when that came out.
Yeah, because I realized, Run DMC was 80s. Definitely had to be 80s.
But that was ahead of its time, too, to get together with a classic rock band like Aerosmith and suddenly put in this boombox, or we called them ghetto blasters at the time, beats. Okay. Okay, I'm supposed to ask why you're hanging out with me.
I love you, Mike.
We've known each other for so long. We met through other people. But
we got our whole we have this whole iron sharpens iron thing that we like.
Oh, thank you.
That's because
I think of myself as a butter knife, though. I butter the bread.
No, you play like butter.
Yeah, there you go.
For stimulating conversation.
It's funny because we would do this anyway, just at Buffalo Wild Wings.
This is that's why it's like Seinfeld. They decided to make a show about what they're already doing. They're just hanging out talking about stuff. So
that's a good lesson. I've been listening to people who do really successful things, and they all say the same thing. Like, I would do this anyway, and that's why I think about guitar. That's why I think about jiu-jitsu. Like, I would invite guys over and just do jiu-jitsu. I'd learn off of a magazine if I had to,
Right. But
the fact that it's big and I can go to an actual place and learn it for real, or do my videos and actually make a living at it, it's just the second. It's like a after effect of something I'd be doing anyway. Even if I had a 9-to-5 job that I had to go to every day, which I can't imagine.
I can't imagine you in that
What
mold.
the hell would I do?
Maybe if it was 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., maybe.
True. Yeah. Like I worked at a gas station.
Mortician or something.
Almost freaking jumped off a bridge back then, but mortician. It's a good idea. Okay, there's one about learning the fretboard, but I'm doing a bunch of videos on that coming up. But I do remember a time when I didn't know my fretboard, and we were in that trio band with Tony, and you asked me what note I was playing, and I had to do the reverse octave trick to find out what I was playing. So those were dark days.
God, even then, really, you didn't know your neck.
Not on the G string. I didn't know much about the G string back then. Okay, practice routines. I used to practice 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day. Yeah. No routine. I would just
obsessively.
I did the Steve Vai 12-hour routine for a while, but really it just came down to whatever I was really interested at the time. I would just go deep on.
So other than that, I mean, if you have that passion spark like you did, run with that, because that's when you're going to learn the most, because you're driven to
follow your bliss.
But like, say you get to this level where you're a practicing musician, practicing, it can, become a chore and you kind of blow it off, or you sit down and you just go right to you're playing your best ofs, you play all your favorite licks and everything.
Your Guitar Center licks.
Thinking about it ahead of time and to make it efficient. Actually, Petrucci wrote an article on this that was very helpful. He's like, I get out some sheet music and I do, but break it up into, okay, what am I weak at? Well, I suck at sweeps. All right. So, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to practice sweeps for 15 minutes, so technique things, expressive things, listening things, timekeeping things, and, shredding things, whatever. Break down
stage moves,
break down instrument skills into different chunks like that. Whichever one's your weakest at, give the most time to those. But, do 2 or 3 of them every time you practice and focus on those. Otherwise, you're just going to sit down and play Stairway to Heaven every time, so.
That's funny. I was just going to gloss over that, but that was awesome. I always say, it's easy to feel good by playing what you're good at, of course. But once again, it's like jiu-jitsu. You go to class, of course, you're good at triangles. You're going to try to triangle everybody. But what if this one time you just say, I'm going to work on takedowns because I suck at them? Even if I look stupid, I have to do it. It's about, alone practicing at home.
Better look stupid there.
You could look stupid, but in jiu-jitsu, you're in front of the whole class, in front of your teacher.
Right.
You have to look stupid. You have to get used to it. I think that's why a lot of jiu-jitsu guys are cool, because that sounds very self-serving, but they get beat up so much and defeated so much that they can't, if you're a guitar player, you could be a basement hero, you could finally play a really tough lick that you've always wanted to play and feel great and kind of show off that you're this guitar player. But until you have to actually prove it on stage, I think it doesn't humble you until you're on the stage.
Well, a big part of that is because you don't realize how often when you're playing by yourself, oh, screwed up, stop, going to redo it, or you pause here and then pick the riff back up. You can't do that live.
Yeah, there's no putting on the brakes.
So
the damn drummer will keep going.
Try to make yourself aware. And one way I do this is improvisation. If you got something you can record a loop, just record a 3-chord progression and just loop it, 4-bar progression.
But what do you record on these days, John?
8-bar progression, and you record it on your damn phone if you got it.
No, I'm copying my students.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, literally do a cheap-ass recording on your phone of you playing 3 guitar chords and then play over it and improvise and see what you can come up with, Because teaching improvisation is always good. But 2, you can't stop. The chords are going to keep going, I mean, you can stop it, you look stupid because you're not playing anything,
Unless you're purposely trying to leave space.
Right.
I once said I played so tastefully I didn't play anything. Okay, moving on.
John Cage, you know about that piece, classical piece?
Is that a
4
guy
minutes
from
and 16
Double
seconds.
Dre? Oh, no. Of nothing?
It's literally a scored out piece of music for pianist with 4 minutes and 16 seconds of bar rests. The pianist comes out, opens the keyboard drawer, sits there, counts
There's
through every
something to
measure,
that.
turns a page,
And
then he's done, and then he pulls a keyboard drawer and closes it.
There's something nice about that. I like that.
That was aleatory music, chance music. So,
Sounds like for some reason that sounds like a Monty Python skit.
I mean, it's a famous, gimmick piece, but, so the performance ended up being, the guy coughing in the third row or, the sound of people scratching their heads or chuckling or whatever. Yeah.
That's
it's an actual written, composed, published piece.
There's something to that, if you had theater where you were having improv and you just had nothing on the script, eventually people would have to start to just say, so are we going to actually do something? And then they would start talking and maybe it would become something in a weird way.
Well, he did stuff like he had a piece called Living Room Music, and if you do it right, you're gonna have a couple of couches and people sitting around, and they're playing on the ottoman.
Oh, I see.
And
stomp before stomp,
and they're talking, and so he scores out talking instead of singing or whatever.
That's sort of what people do for nature, because nature kind of has its own rhythm too, and you can go deep. What a hippie. Okay, we're almost done. I skipped a bunch. What do you think of the
You don't have
band?
to skip. I love this stuff, man.
Well, you were yawning, man. I'm picking up on your social cues.
Oh, well, I'm an old man who gets up early because I have children.
Did you
But
take your
I'm
nap?
good. I got my second win.
Okay, we'll just go slow on these
I
last
didn't think you
4.
saw that. You got
5.
eyes in the back of your
Well,
head
I've
there.
been teaching for so long, I could pick up on people
Is that some Asian trick with
It's a little Asian. It's Asian persuasion. I can persuade you to want to leave. as well.
It's like I'm having visions of kung fu now. The white-haired master, explaining something that he knew.
I gotta
that
just be able to
David
grow.
Carradine didn't.
I can't grow facial hair, man. I tried. Like I have 2 bald spots here, so it's
Just go with the chin strap, man.
I can't
Get the Scott Ian.
I can't do that. Yeah, the dime bag. Okay, I know my limitations. I've accepted them. So maybe touch on the vast array of band lineups between. Whoa, Deep Purple. Okay, we shouldn't do this because they mentioned
We'll never shut
Whitesnake, and I'm on a big Whitesnake kick right now, but I don't want to talk about it.
Well, I gotta throw in a White Snake, a little ditty here. So,
is it about Tawny Katane?
no,
Tawny Katane.
you can take care of that on your own time.
And I have.
I'm leaving a restaurant the other day. I get in my car. This woman, elderly woman, 70s, early 70s, pulls up in the handicap spot next to me, and she's got
Here I go again.
cranked. Here I go again, cranked. And
I was hoping it was slided in.
And she wears dentures, but they're not currently in.
Uh-oh.
And she's
She's
sitting
ready
there
for something.
singing along.
No teeth?
I'm like, there's got to be a camera around here somewhere.
You're being punked.
And honest to God, I just sat there and watched her for like a minute. She was oblivious. She was totally into it.
Oh, that's awesome,
It
actually.
was so, I'm like, oh, if I would have actually bought Google Glass for that one moment, it would have been worth it. I could have just looked at her and recorded a video of her doing that.
That would have gone viral, too.
Oh, yeah, it's
Wow.
hilarious. But, yeah, I mean, for her to be singing that and to have her lips, like, drawn in because she doesn't have her false teeth in.
Oh, my God, man.
All right.
We're living in strange times, though. Anything's possible.
I'm like, you go, Granny, you go.
Yep. Gum it up. Oh, man. Okay, so yeah, Whitesnake. Did you know I injured my left ear before? I was trying to figure out the rock and roll solo, which everyone says is a mystery. So I thought, damn it, I'm actually going to figure it out. So I found out that this is so dumb. The solo is in one ear because it's panned over to the left. So I put on earbuds and I put my laptop balance all the way to the left, which is dumb because it moves everything to the left, So all this noise and stuff is happening in one ear, and I'm sitting there for an hour trying to figure out every note he's doing, which I finally did. Took forever. But the next day, Chris and I went to a concert, Samantha Fish. Have you heard of her? Mm-mm. Check her out, Samantha Fish. Awesome blues guitar player lady. After that, my ear started making these... I basically would feel this pressure, like if a firecracker ever went off next to your ear. And I was trying to go to bed, and this ringing happened, but it wasn't a high ringing. Well, so it wasn't the high ring that I'm used to hearing that just goes away. It was this mid-range kind of thing. And it kept going. The next day I woke up and it was gone, but I went to bed and I couldn't sleep because every time I'd wake up it'd be there, and I almost had this weird anxiety because I felt like, how do you get rid of that? You can't cover your ears. It's in your head.
Right. You're going insane. You're picturing a Twilight
slowly
Zone.
Slowly going Twilight Zone. And all of a sudden I would talk and I would hear 2 voices. And every note I hit on the guitar, I would hear a third interval, and it was in the key of F. It was that distinct that I could
Really?
find it. Yeah. So I had to play a New Year's gig, and it was so bad, my hearing just went totally off. But I remember driving to the New Year's gig, and I felt this bad feeling because I knew I'd have to play 3 hours with a bad ear. And I thought, am I going to make it worse? Every time the drummer would hit his snare, it felt like someone was kicking me in the ear. It was super painful. By the way, it lasted 3.5 months. Until it finally went away. So I thought I just resigned to being like that.
Did you go to see a doctor or anything?
No, because I talked to people. A lot of my friends said you just have to wait it out, and I hate doctors. But that's another story.
Did you try to get some quiet or anything?
I did everything besides go to the doctor.
Earplugs and...
Yep. So I had to wear earplugs, and then I had to wear those Vic Firth drumming headphones just to get through practice. It was so bad, and I almost wanted to wear those live, but I didn't. I couldn't do it.
Wow.
So. Anyways, I remember...
How's this tie to Whitesnake?
Okay, so I was driving to the gig on New Year's, and I remember hearing him sing Still of the Night. The beginning, it's just his voice. And I could remember distinctively hearing 2 pitches of Still of the Night. So every time I hear Whitesnake now, I think of being half deaf. So
Wow.
It kind of
got a trigger now.
Yeah, but luckily those sweet, sweet guitar solos kind of make it worth it.
God. John Sykes, right?
You ever listen to those solos on that album?
He's great, man.
Holy crap, people don't talk about him enough.
I know it's just a gimmicky
I'm
thing
glad
to some
you knew
people,
he
but he
was.
had the best slides. I don't
Yes.
know what it was.
He had to slide it in.
He's a Les Paul guy, wasn't he?
Yes.
That's it.
But I did see him playing other things because you would hear him do some trumbar stuff, and you're wondering how's he doing that. But he did play some other guitar. I want to do a whole video thing on
I
him
was
too.
really into his technique and style back then. That was late '80s, right? Yeah.
Listen to "Is This Love?" He does this like bend right in time, and everything sounds so smooth. It's like he has a fretless guitar or something when he's playing. But everything's very musical. His solo stuff, he did a little. I think he did "Blue Murder," right? Wasn't that him?
Yeah.
And some of it got a little. I don't know. It wasn't Whitesnake. I think Whitesnake held him back in a good way. Like some people need to be held back just a little bit to kind of play in that groove.
I think he totally gets overlooked when people talk about Whitesnake. They talk about Coverdale.
And then Vi joined the band, so they talk about him and Vandenberg, right?
Yeah, but I think Sykes made Whitesnake, at least when they're at their peak. It was his playing and songwriting style really made that sound.
According to him, he did so much for their big album. He said like Coverdale didn't even want to come in and sing. He was like dragging his feet, and he had to like force him to finish the
He's
album.
at home with Tawny. What the?
He's probably spending his money, and good-looking guy. But the funny thing is like, have you heard the old version of some of those tunes? Because a lot of the ones on that album were actually covered or recreations of their old stuff.
No.
So if you hear the original "Here I Go Again," it sounds okay. It's totally different sounding. There's different harmonies going on, and he says,
They probably don't have the Def Leppard drums in there either.
"No, it sounds like Deep Purple playing. It's really cool."
Really?
But there's a part where he goes, instead of like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. He says a hobo. I swear to God, like a hobo. I was like, you can't say that these days. That'd be like saying like a bum or something, you know? It just
But that's so
doesn't work.
funny. The hobo is such a weird. I don't know. It's the drifter is so much cooler than hobo.
I feel like a producer made that call. You can't say hobo, dude. That's just weird. Sounds like
Yeah,
homo.
who do you think you are, Frank Zappa?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, back then they would have got it confused. Remember when homo was a bad word? Or it is now, but back then everyone's like, you're a homo, you know? But hobo. I don't know. Okay, I just brought controversy to the podcast. Okay, 3 more. Ready?
Yeah. Let's do it.
At what point in your playing did you find your sound?
Jeez.
Have you even found your sound? Or are you just a copycat?
Yeah, I
Like the
don't know
rest
if
of
I
us.
really. I only recently found my tone, but as far as my sound, it's one of those you never arrive things to me. I mean, I guess the closest I came is when I did my CD. I mean, I definitely had a style on that album that you could sense influences from others, but it was my sound, especially my slap style was like. It was kind of a rock slap kind of thing. It wasn't. I mean, now you see that all over the place. You see a lot more slap in rock, but you didn't back then. It was my Flea influence overlaid on my Getty influence, and
That's
whatever.
how it happens, all right?
And
Chris said your sound was micromanaging and mixing. That's how you came to it.
well, that was me trying to get a certain kind of tone. Yes, I did micromanage, and it was the worst thing I ever did.
You're like, last time we had 1K up a fraction of a turn.
Yeah. Oh God, that was the worst. That just gives me nightmares.
You learned a lot, though.
Well, I learned what not to do. I did all the wrong things. I soloed a channel and made it sound perfect. And then I sold the next channel and made it sound perfect.
That's
but
a common-
That's not how an ensemble works.
Right.
And
That's not how life works,
and Chris
man.
would sit back and he'd be playing everything, and he'd like go to channel 13 and turn the mid shift like just a notch that way, and then the frequency,
Just a butt hair down.
and I'm like, I can't even hear what you did. How do you
He was faking it.
But he probably was.
Till he finally made it.
No, but that is the right way to be listening to the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like we talked about. Getty's tone sounds like shit when you solo it, but it's perfect for the band, and it's why you can always hear him.
I'm going to quote you and just say Getty's tone sound like
tone.
shit.
John Pepper. Getty's tone sounds like shit.
You're right, though. It's like an artist thinking of the whole picture, and as they're drawing, like we recently went and saw, who was it? God, Chris and I went and saw. It was a big deal. Kiss. We saw Kiss. And how could I forget? One of my favorite bands. But the artist came out and he started to draw, and you're like, what is that? And at the end, he got done with it, flipped it over, and it was Prince. But 3/4 of the way through, I didn't know what it was. It was amazing, but he had the idea of the whole picture as he was drawing every little thing, and then he flips it, and all of a sudden the whole crowd went crazy. So it's the same idea. Like sometimes,
Who's he drawing? Detroit.
What's
Kid
that?
Rock.
Detroit would be.
No, it'd be one of them.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Detroit.
Which
Rock
one
City.
of them's from? Isn't one of them from Detroit?
All I know is Detroit Rock City. But Detroit, there's got to be tons. So, yeah, that's the thing. Everywhere they stop, they drew somebody. So, I think in Wisconsin they drew Brett Favre and flipped it. No, who would it be now? I'm showing my age.
Hey, Raj.
Raj, yeah. Hey, Raj. Okay.
I get
You
your
know what that
reference
is?
there. What's
No, you
happening?
don't. Yes, I thought
I'm older than you, man.
it's good to be almost the same age because you get weird.
Isn't that
little
great?
things.
Yeah, that is like
That's
really
shit.
obscure reference.
I would watch that when I stayed home from school. It'd be like when I was younger, it was Price is Right, and then it became like soap operas. I got into like Passions.
Oh God,
Passions.
The
It's
worst
like,
soap opera
It's
of all.
like the Deep Space Nine of soap operas.
Oh yeah, Deep
which
Space Nine. I know why
still
you got
love
into
it.
Deep Space Nine.
Yes, you do. There's a few reasons. And then, for some reason, they played reruns of. That's funny, reruns of What's Happening. All of a sudden, it's just like God,
Good
this is-
times or
Good. I was raised on Good Times, and I was like, I live in a weird world. I live in a different world. Okay, because the dad was always mad and like it seemed like he was going to beat somebody up at any moment.
Yeah, he
and
was.
then Janet Jackson falls down the elevator shaft and all that.
I forgot she was
After
on
getting
there.
burned by an
She's
iron?
on Different Strokes. She was on there.
She was everywhere,
She
man.
was a chubby little youngster then.
Yeah, with a bun in the back.
She didn't have the 6-pack abs.
Still have a crush on who was the sister?
Oh,
JJ's
the one that I was
sister.
making fun of, JJ.
Yeah, JJ. I want to say Willona, but that was like the neighbor, right?
You know, it wasn't a sitcom you liked if you didn't have a crush on somebody.
That's true.
Honeymooners.
Even Cheers. I don't know. Shelley Long was cute for a while, and then Christy Elliott.
Yeah, she's.
But the cutest girl on Cheers, do you know who it was?
You'll never get Woody's
this.
little girlfriend gal, the blonde.
She was cute, but she was. What would you talk to her about? You're talking about Kelly. Remember his song?
Kelly, yeah, Kelly.
Kelly.
Then they could get married because they were like two different factions of Lutheran or something.
Yeah, that was. Do you remember the Christmas episode where Sam went shopping at the last minute to get Rebecca something because he thought she was going to invite him over? And he ended up like all the stores were closed. He's sitting on the sidewalk, and all of a sudden that girl showed up, and she was like angelic, and she went back to the bar with him and gave him like her presents to give to her. Do you remember that?
I don't know. I've seen all those many times, but I haven't watched them for years though.
She ended up getting along better with Woody, and it was a long story, but she was the cutest, I think.
All right, what else you got?
Why did you pick X as your instrument? Not X,
Picked
but
me. No. So I was a keyboardist first. Then I was a fairly serious drummer for a while.
did you ever play guitar? I picture you doing that. Okay.
Although, I saw an old video of Edgar Winter before there was keytar.
Yeah.
He had a big 88 key synth with a strap around it that he had rigged, and he had it. He was standing and he was playing. It was a video of Frankenstein. It's out there on YouTube.
How heavy would that be back in the 70s?
Yeah, and he was like, finally settled that debate that I remember guitar players and Todd Wick having about the part in the middle that goes, blah, 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 blah. If it was keyboard or guitar, it's keyboard.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
and
Until
you can see him
Overkill
playing
did it.
that live. It's crazy, man. This guy's a freak of a musician.
Was it
And
the
then he
two-
gets over on the drums and he's playing that part in there. He's playing that, and then
Do you play all the
he plays
instruments?
the sax, for the da 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 da. He's crazy, but anyway, no guitar. But I started playing drums in band in school, percussion.
Were you
And,
good, or were you just...
It was no kid. It was like, you're playing snare, you're playing bass, you're playing bells,
Okay.
whatever. Taught myself to read music to get into band. And
Before the internet?
and then I started playing bass. I can't remember why I started.
Girls.
Yeah, chicks. And so I was doubling, and I was playing jazz band in the bass, and there was like 3 drummers all rotating on drums. I'm like, screw that. I was the only bass player, so I played bass in every song. And so I doubled for a couple of years, and pretty soon I was like there's a lot more drummers around than bass players, especially decent bass players. And so people started calling me to play bass more. And after a while, I don't know, by my early 20s, I kind of let the drums fall by the side by then because I was playing so much bass. So.
Well, then you became this bass phenom. All my friends would talk about you. So, of course, we had to ask you to join the world's best country band ever. How long were you in the Breeze
for a year. I always tell people I did a country band for a year as a favor to a friend, and it was. Tony's like, man, come on. Brett sucks. Well, Brett said, come on, I suck.
Right? He was open about it. But
Right.
he's always been so self-deprecating about that stuff. But what's funny is I think you and Unit had the same response. Like, I remember you guys were, like, learning the songs and you were like, does this country song go GCD or GDC? It's like it was some combination.
It was the first time I learned that really simple music can be really hard because
Right.
it's, something complicated. It's easy to remember where you are because it's like they only play that one time in the whole song or whatever, You're learning a Rush or Dream Theater song. There's no confusing where you are. There's nothing repeats, And
But there's some to that simplicity.
and what's funny is, before the first practice, Tony
We practiced.
emails me the set list or whatever, and I sit down and I learn, and there was like 10 new songs, so he gave me those too. So I just learned everything, and I show up, and
Who
the rest of the
practiced?
band knew shit.
It was the whole band?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you were in it then yet or not. I can't
Was it
remember.
just, okay.
I don't remember you being at that rehearsal. So you might have been in the band, but Todd and Tony, me and Brett were all there, and it's like, these songs suck. Nobody knows them. Brett doesn't know lyrics. Todd doesn't know his. And Tony's like, I knew you'd have them down and know him the best. And I'm like, no, I'm the best. I'm the new guy, man. Why don't you guys know him?
So
And
you had an experience like that too.
that's when I first
funny.
heard Brett's favorite phrase: paid rehearsals.
Yes. He has so many.
I'm like, some of us don't like sucking on stage.
We have pride. Ever heard of it? No, Brett's great. Like, if anything from Brett, I have all these sayings that I still use at gigs, like when we get paid a little bit, and then they give us free food. We always say, that's your bonus right there. That's your overtime pay. Eat up.
I forgot
Okay.
what the last question even was.
Okay, this one doesn't. Oh, it was about why'd you pick bass?
Oh,
Let's see. I like that.
because it's awesome.
It shows me. Bass players are cut from a different cloth, man. It's like you just like when people see Greg in the Heart Band, they're like, he just looks like a bass player, and you can tell when someone's not really a bass player. That's weird.
Guitar player trapped in a bass player's body.
Yeah, I had to practice so many years just to get out from that. I sound just like a guitar player playing bass.
You know what's so funny is I was going through like my old music collection trying to pare it down a little, and I came across an Yngwie Malmsteen from, God, I don't know, sometime in the 80s.
That's so
There's like
weird
a
you said
dragon
that.
on the cover,
That was the question right here I was looking at. Yeah.
and there's a song in there though where he's playing bass with a pick like crazy mad. Yeah, he's just like.
It probably says right on the thing, performed by Yngwie.
And I'm like, I don't remember this. It's like nobody had done anything like that on bass before that. But yeah, it's just totally shredding on the bass. But he's playing it like a guitar player,
Of course.
But
He recently played here, and some of my friends worked, or they know people that work sound for him.
Oh, yeah?
And just the stories you always get, they're so classic, Because I always think Yngwie puts on a big front, but he's not. It's not like he's selling out huge stadiums anymore. So it's
No.
like he needs these gigs, but he still acts like he could walk out at any time, And he's earned it. He's Yngwie, man. Speaking of that, I am a complete beginner. Is being like Yngwie, he put it in quotes, a valid goal for me.
no,
I don't know if that was a troll question or real. I would ask that when I was younger.
a valid goal.
Yeah. Like playing wise, I would say. Maybe not personality wise. Maybe. I don't know.
Playing like Yngwie. Well, first of all, nobody plays like Yngwie anymore except Yngwie.
Yeah, it seems like it.
That the mix of the classical and the
Maybe
and the
Guthrie
shredding.
Govan can do it.
Who was the guy that played the X guitar?
Michael Angelo Beto.
Yeah, so he was from that Yngwie family tree.
Back in the day, everybody wanted to be like him, I think. Like, everybody wanted to be the ultimate shredder. If you go back and watch those old instructional videos, everybody's just trying to play as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Some of those didn't age well, You watch them now and you're like, oh, I see what you're kind of going for,
Right.
But some of those guys, who today are still relevant, like Neil Sean, he'd put out a video and it'd be very tasteful still, even back
What
in the
happened to
shred days.
Reb Beach?
Still playing, I think.
Is he?
Yeah, I went through a winger phase recently, and I'm like, what song was it that I was like, that's a hard freaking
It was
song?
pretty good.
The whole band had to play, was it 17? And then there was
Yeah.
like a time change during the verse. I'm like, try to play that song and then get back to me on how crappy Winger is. You know, it's like, they're not. It's like,
Red
just,
Beach was good. Another guy was good. Warren D. Martini.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You know, even now, it's like, you know, a lot of the stuff, like metal from the 80s sounds very 80s. The guitar in Round does not sound dated to me. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
it's because I came to age during that, but like the soloing in there, I don't know. It still plays good to me. I don't know.
It's got like it's like George Lynch too. You ever get into like his stuff?
Yeah,
Like Dokken and Rat and all that stuff. You could hear it today and you can, maybe it's because we listened to it so long as kids, but I could sing every line of it. Nowadays it's like, it's like the craziest stuff and you can't remember it. I always say, is it better to play? I keep saying I always say as if I'm like Confucius or something, but why play a million notes that disappear into the ether when you could play, you know, a substantial thing that stays with people? And that's not saying you have to be boring. Listen to these guys.
It's the thing is it's musical. That's why. So you know, because I devour anything reasonably complicated, I'm like, yeah, listen to Animals as leaders, and I, you know, but then you know when I saw him, Pliny came and warmed up for them, and I wasn't blown away by Pliny so much at the time. His drummer, freaking blew me away. So good, one of the best live drum performances I've ever seen. He didn't solo one note, but then I liked Pliny enough. I'm like, I'm gonna pick up his EP. I'm like, wow, this is really good, and his band is really good and stuff. And
How do you spell that? Pliny?
Plini,
Easy enough.
and he it's just more musical than Animals as leaders is like, let's make some equations out of music, you know? I mean, when it works, it's good. Like there's a song, Physical Education. It's actually got like a head melody to it, you know, and stuff. But some of their other stuff, it's just like meandering, you know, and Tosin shredding, you know, on a 9-string guitar or whatever.
Is it like when Tony was writing riffs for us to play?
That was during that.
But wait,
time.
the next part.
Yeah, he's literally going.
Yep.
It's awesome. And he knows it was stupid, but he's like, but it sounds cool. Here.
Yep.
And yeah, I remember I had to play it. One riff was really hard. It was like
was
chromatic down
challenging.
on the B string, and I'm like, I had to really stretch out.
I recently did that with Chris because he was writing something about drummers writing guitar riffs, but it forces you out of your box.
Should never be allowed. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it'll definitely force you out of their box because they don't know what they're doing. It's
There's
like
no box.
when the person was asking how to write a song. I meant to say the worst thing to do is like sit down at your guitar or at like if you sit at a keyboard and put your hands down, you're going to play a C major.
Yeah.
You know, you sit down at a guitar, you're going to play either a G or an E. You know.
You go back to what you're comfortable with, or the white keys. Yeah.
You know, when you do have that little chunk, I meant to say stop and then try to write it in your head as much as you can first, and then go to your instrument and figure out what you wrote in your head. You know.
You get dual benefit then. You get that open channel to the creative gods, whatever that is, and you also get the transcribing aspect of it where you can figure it out.
True. You got to learn your own stuff by ear, you know, because, yeah, otherwise you're limited by what your hands can do. I mean, as a guy who composed for orchestra, try to sit at a keyboard and compose for orchestra. I mean, even though you got the full range,
Yeah.
but it's like your hands only stretch this far, you know. It's like, you know, you can't think that way. You got to get out of that box. That's why you got to try to think of what you want before you actually play it out, you know.
That's why the ultimate composition, I think, happens not on an instrument. You know, it just comes to you eventually. But you do sometimes have to force yourself through, like we said, verse, chorus, verse, throw something together.
Yeah, form is something. I mean, there's a whole, class on it in college, form and analysis. I mean, you spend lots of time talking about different forms composers have used, as ways to get more mileage out of their music or to organize it somehow, But I keep coming back. I can't tell you how many times in my life I've come back to this, bold statement Mike Garrison made to me one time that you can tell if a song is well written if it sounds good on acoustic. With just acoustic guitar and singer. And I'm like...
You'll never guess where I got that from. Paul Stanley of Kiss. Through Mike Lott.
Okay.
Your life has been a lie.
Mike Lott, neither Mike Lott or Paul Stanley, are people I model after for my music writing.
That's right,
So,
I'm sorry.
but when you said Paul Stanley, I out of respect for you, I try not to, do the blah ha ha, but
Thank you.
because
Appreciate
Kiss
it.
was a lot of things, and they're great performers, but master songwriters, I wouldn't necessarily put them up there as that.
Even towards the end, they were like hooking up with other songwriters like Desmond Child and stuff, writing.
I mean, there's a
forever
reason
and
Paul
all.
Stanley usually talks for like 45 minutes at every concert.
How you doing?
He's
Yeah,
always got to tell some long story about how he hooked up with a girl or whatever. But
yeah. I'm always wondering about that. So, but
no,
yeah,
but I was thinking about it, and you know what? When it came up again for me the other day is I heard Jack and Diane. I'm like, the hook of that song is when the power chords come in.
Yeah.
Very,
very
that's
much.
just not going to play as well on acoustic.
Yeah.
So it's not a. I mean, there's maybe a little meat to that, but you just can't apply it as any kind of universal rule because there's just some songs where that does not work.
Yeah, any solid rule seems to break apart a little bit when it stretch over time.
Well, so music is full of different elements. Sometimes it's good, shredding guitar. Sometimes it's like a real cool sounding bass line. It's like my son's making fun of me because I was listening to. For about 3 days, I was obsessed with the song "Attention" by I can't think of his name.
Tiny Tim.
No, you just want attention. I can't think of his name right now.
Bee
Anyway,
Gees?
huh?
The Bee Gees?
No, but he sings like that. He does a lot of falsetto. Anyway, he. Oh God, I gotta Google it now.
Who can Google quicker? Oh no, my screen's sideways.
Who sings "Attention"?
How dare you? How dare you go to AI? Oh, mine brought up the definition.
It's still listening. What the heck?
Charlie Puth.
Puth, yeah, Charlie Puth. So anyway, my son who's in middle school, he's like,
Puth.
13-year-old girls like Charlie Puth. I can't believe. I'm like, listen to that bass line though. He's got this cool part right after the intro. First verse is just him and bass. And it's like I had to Google it. I'm like, kind of sounds like, amped up, mic'd up P bass, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a sample. And, I looked it up. Yeah, it was some kind of sample, but it was a really good sample. And I'm like, he's like octaves just going down with the vocal and stuff. It's nothing super fancy, but it just works so well. I'm like, I was obsessed and I was listening to it for a couple of days and then I was over it,
That's the weird thing about today is like you'll get into that song and then he'll disappear. The artist, he'll be like, I never bought the album. I never got into any B-sides or anything.
Yeah, do you still do the kids' day at the elementary school?
No, I had my other teacher, Tim, take over because Bobby, the guy who put it together, he changed grades, so it's like a whole different group of people that don't care.
Because I remember you telling me about it, asking them, so what kind of, what bands you into or whatever, and it was just like crickets and like.
Oh, that's all my students too.
Confused stares, because it's a different era. It's the era of the MP3,
Back in the day, it was I like Blink-182. I love all these songs. They pull out their little mix CDs. Nowadays, it's hold on, let me check my playlist. I don't like anything. Okay. End of the lesson.
The hardest part with me with digital music is remembering names of songs now.
Right.
Because before, you're sitting around, you got nothing else to do. You read the album jacket while you're listening, or the cassette case or whatever.
Yeah, you unfold it.
You read all about the credits and where they recorded it and who produced it and who mixed it and
Yep.
mastered by Bob Ludwig. Who else?
Yep.
Everything's mastered by Bob Ludwig.
It was weird. It was some sort of monopoly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the weird thing is you'd go deep with things, and I wonder, like you were talking about trying to go deep with things instead of just like covering so much ground. The other day I was on this kick where I wanted to start speed reading because I thought, man, I'd be so smart if I could read all these books. And as I read through the books as fast as I could, I realized it was like in school I didn't retain anything, And so I took one book and I'm like, you know what? This time I'm going to actually go word to word, read it out loud in my head, and actually like sink myself into the story. And I got so much more out of like one page than I would have a whole book of skimming.
See, people talk about growth. You experiment with yourself. That's what I like. You're aware, you're doing things deliberately, and you're paying attention to whether they work or not. And if not, you try something else. You come up with something harebrained. Okay, well, I tried that. It didn't really work. But,
Sometimes
that's what I mean. You have this natural, it's even more than the curiosity, just a desire to, how can I you better the mousetrap or whatever, you know, it's like,
And the one thing you learn is sometimes you think the best thing for it is actually you've gone too far. Like I keep saying, like you go that one extra step and suddenly you're wearing an Apple Watch when you don't need one. So it's like I like climbing and then going right to the edge before you fall over the other side. So for most things, I suck at a lot of things. But when it gets to the point where like speed reading, maybe I just didn't give it enough time. Maybe if I did it every day for a month, I could read books and retain things. But I just find like right now, getting deep into one thing seems to be the key.
I actually took some classes back in like junior high, and I personally think it's a load of crap.
There are like infomercials and stuff.
You're basically at your best, unless you have, you know, whatever that is where you have photographic memory, you're skimming basically. And so you're going to get a skimmer's experience is what it comes down to.
Well, they had me like going back and forth on lines 2 at a time. But what I really learned to do is see things in groups though. So I can read twice as fast as I used to. So there's an advantage.
Yeah. I mean, there was legitimate developmental techniques that they taught me and stuff, but ultimately, yeah, it's you're put it this way. It's like, what if you decide you want to be the fastest runner in the world? You can only get so far, you know, unless you're born with Usain Bolt's legs, right? You know, and it's the same thing with speed reading. You know, you can develop your technique to a certain extent, and you know.
But there seems to be a threshold for some reason. Someday maybe we can get rid of that and be like the Matrix. But then would you even value it?
Maybe do books on tape at twice speed.
Even that, so I have this jujitsu website I learned from, and I tried to like double the speed of it and think I could take it in. There's just something about, I don't know, I hate to admit it, but maybe I'm just stuck at one level of frequency of learning that if I go above it, I'm not going to get, it's going to be, what do they call that? Where you start to like lose the benefit of something after a while.
Diminished returns.
Yeah, of trying to cram so much in. So maybe if I just slow down, realize I'm not going to die, well, hopefully not die tomorrow, I could, you know, really dive deep into these things and take from it.
I think there's a speed you function at, and that's the speed. It's like, I was reading this article one time and it said, you know, why are we so exhausted after a trip, like traveling and all that? And the guy's like, listen, our bodies were meant to travel at camel speed, you know, or foot speed, walking. He's like, you know, not taking a jet across an ocean or whatever. He's like, so it wears us out because we weren't built for it. And so I think your whole, you know, trying to learn things faster and whatever, you can do it, but you may be stressing yourself out, not benefiting that much, and your body just doesn't like it, can't handle it, your brain, whatever. It's just not the speed you're supposed to move.
And we're always trying to find shortcuts, just being like people that want to get better at things. So it's like I got into isometric training for a while. I thought, man, if I don't have to lift weights, I could just hold a plank for, you know, this much. And you start to learn there are benefits to a lot of different things, but sometimes it just goes back to the old-fashioned way of doing things. That's wise, tried and true.
Oh, the thing I'm focused on now is like the best way to learn stuff is to get rid of the distractive crap.
Yeah.
Pare away the stuff that's not helping you. That's kind of my focus.
Do you know who Neil Gaiman is? He's an author, wrote tons of awesome stuff. Like I was really getting into his old comic books, but he's writing like, you know, full-length books, and he has a series out right now called American Gods. Have you heard of it?
Neil Gaiman?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, he's amazing. He keeps talking about
You do realize like 50% of American males don't read one book a year, right?
Yeah, sure. But he was giving some really good tips on how to be creative, and he's like, some people go to hotel rooms and they just they won't allow themselves to go to like an exciting place for the hotel. It's kind of boring. It's not a luxurious hotel. Same here. And you either feel bored or you write. You're not allowed to like go on the internet. So he said something really profound.
You're forced to work out of. There's nothing else to do.
He's like, you get 2 rules. 1, you can do nothing. 2, you can write. So you're just not allowed to do something else. I'm like, that's genius, because then after a while, being bored gets old. I might as well write, you know, because writing facing that blank page can be so daunting. But if you force yourself into it,
what happens to me is it usually takes half a day for like the stress of the world to fall off.
Sure.
So like I'll get there and I'll pace around because I'm like, I feel like I need to be doing something. There's something I should be getting done or whatever. And it takes a while to just kind of, you know, get centered and get rid of that crap. And then I can think real clearly, you know, and I don't mind the lack of distraction. I actually relish it. But at first, stripping that away and forcing yourself into be like quiet, still place, it's like you realize we get ourselves into this hectic paced life just because of the way it is around us. You know, we're busy all the time, running all the time. You know, and
Your phone's always, you always wanted like reach. You're like, oh God, it's
and
weird.
they almost call that the twitch.
Yeah.
You know, it buzzes in you. And you just out of habit, the instinct, you got to reach for it, you know.
There's that saying, you know, last thing you see at night, first thing you see in the morning. And I was like, I wouldn't, oh, that is me. You know, you want to think you're better than that. But literally it's like, okay, what time is it? And no matter what, oh, there is a notification. I better check it.
Right, because the world might end if I don't. And
Yeah, people are going to flip phones now. Do you know that? There's like, they make like a brand of flip phone
backlash
going back. So to type a sentence, you have to like hit 4.
I know there's
3
plenty of apps to like, you know, tell you how much time you're spending on there and, you know, or try to get you to stop and breathe and
Sure.
which phone companies don't like because the makers, because they want to keep you addicted.
I thought they would like it because I shut mine off right away because I didn't want them to know what I was doing all the time. Like they could tell what kind of apps you're looking at and all that stuff. So I shut it off. But recently I turned it on and it was like 2 hours a day, I think I'm at. And I'm like, well, it's better than what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like 6.
2 hours that your phone's on?
Well, here's the thing. I like listen to podcasts, so I don't know if it counts that too.
Yeah.
But physically going like
'cause
this,
it's part of your
there's no-
business. You gotta, you know,
Yeah.
post and stuff like
like
that.
right before you got here, I was uploading the. You're gonna laugh. 153 Metallica riffs played and ranked in order.
Ranked.
I
So
did.
what's number one?
I can't tell you. But what's funny
let's
is
start off today.
over the last like 2
You ain't
months
get no ad
ago,
revenue off of me, Garrett.
That's right.
Gary Inson
no
or
one's
whatever.
gonna watch. No one's gonna watch 4 hours of this. But what's funny is just the idea of I did Master Puppets, all the riffs. Here's the ones I like the most. Then I did all of the first 5 albums, which a lot of people consider their best work. And then I thought about it. I'm like, why don't I just do a whole compilation of all of those? So it ended up being 153 in a row, which is crazy. Gets so old after like 2 minutes, but still, the diehard fans will watch it. You know.
I'll just go to the first commenter that types
I was gonna say, yep. How is To Live's to Die #1? No, I'm just kidding. I do love that song though. But anyways, I gotta pee again, so I think I was gonna wrap this up.
Metallica was the first band where I really realized formula that works because their whole, and I didn't know if they knew they were doing it on purpose until Hetfield talked about Unforgiven, where they flipped it and they did the heavy verses and the mellow choruses. You know, where
Well-
all their successful songs before that have been, you know, the mellower verse to build up to the
Yeah.
heavy chorus.
That's
you know?
interesting, because I know they use the same A minor C G E of some kind circle a lot for their ballads. So it was like Fade to Black, A minor C G E minor, Unforgiven, A minor C G E major. So you get that similar
major.
sound, but you get that interesting G sharp thrown in there, which is kind of cool.
That must harmonic minor.
Yeah, you'll hear it.
Harmonic minor, right? You get the,
You heard about Kirk Hammett, right? Before one of their albums, he had like hundreds of riffs in, because he wrote the riff for Enter Sandman, their most famous riff. He had all these riff ideas in his phone, and I think he lost his phone right before they were going to record.
Oh, man.
Or it disappeared somehow. So yeah, don't trust all your stuff to your phone. All right. Well, that was fun. It's funny, you can just tell when a conversation's done, usually when you have to pee or get tired.
or
Thanks,
old man
John.
Yawning.
Yes. Or you start singing Yanni. Do you remember Yanni?